What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast here on this Friday, December 13th. It's Friday the 13th. No spooky stuff going on the program today. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody had a great week. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Hopefully you're liking and supporting everything I do because trust me, it really does help. And, it's been a little bit over a month since a little bit of a transition in my career here, but the outpouring of love and emotion and support has been overwhelming. So thank you. Let's just keep it up. Let's keep this train moving forward. And let's bring you some of the best sports content here in the Tampa Bay area. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Those subscriptions help out big time. And let somebody know. We've had so many different people reach out to me in the last couple of weeks saying, man, my radio is just not the same, or, my sports content is just not what it was. Well, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So share it with your friends. Let they tell 3 people, you tell 3 people, they'll tell 3 people, and we'll just continue to spider web this thing out and continue to talk some Tampa Bay sports right here every day at noon starting in 2025. I'm live today. I'll be live again on Monday as well. And then I'll give you guys an update on what the schedule is going to be like for the rest of 2024 here. I will be doing my top 20 sports stars of Tampa Bay. If you've been following me the last couple of years, it's something that I've been doing with the local media, and I'm going to continue to do that right here on the podcast. So one of the final shows of the year will be the top 20 sports stars of Tampa Bay. If you've never seen it before, it's been really, really cool to see where all of the different athletes, coaches, front office members rank in the eyes of the media here in the Tampa Bay area. So we'll go over some of the rankings from last year and then this year, and we'll see who takes that number 1 spot. I always want to hear from you. Very interactive here on the program today. Comments, questions, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Shout out to J Mac, Russell Welch, Hammer, and Sergio. Love the shoe. Sergio, thank you, buddy. You know the shoe game. I'm wearing some chancletas right now. So they got any nice shoes around here? Nowhere close. I'll get them. I'll show you guys later on. Big show for you today on the program. Starting out the gates at 12:20 today, our guy Xavier Scruggs is going to join us from ESPN, the MLB Network. What does he have to say about the JuanSoto deal and also about everything that's going on with the MLB hot stove? And also his opinion. I haven't heard what he's had to say about the Tampa Bay Rays playing at Steinbrenner Field on this side of the bridge. Xavier played in the big leagues. He played in Korea, so he'll have a really unique perspective on that entire thing. So Xavier Scruggs will join us at 12:20. 12:40, Gabby Shirley, Lightning reporter. You see her on the FanDuel Sports Network covering our Tampa Bay Lightning. Wait, my sources tell me. Yep. The Bolts just scored again. 8-3 winners in Calgary last night against the Flames. What was it like to be there? And what was it like to see a guy like Jake Gensel score a hat trick and not even be the number 1 star of the game, with Nikita Kucherov picking up 6 points in that game last night? I don't know where Gabby is. I don't know if she's in Calgary. I don't know if she's in Seattle because that's where the next game is. So we'll find out where Gabby is amongst her travels, but you know that we'll be talking some Tampa Bay Lightning at 12:40. At 1:20 today, Bailey Adams is going to join us from Pewter Report. We're going to break down Bucs and Chargers. Tampa Bay travels cross country to take on Jim Harbaugh and their version of the Bolts on the West Coast. I'm really excited about this game. I'm going to tell you why here momentarily. 1:40, one of the biggest names locally here for baseball, the one and only Paul Russo. Not Pat. His brother's not joining us. Sorry, Pat. We love you too. Paul Russo is going to join us at 1:40 today. There's a lot of local stories going on, and I'm rocking the UT fitted today. Shout out to the national champions, 9-time national champions. You see the championship hat right here as well. Shout out to Joe Urso, Sam Militello, Jose Jimenez, and the whole crew over there. Paul went to UT. Ask him about that. Also, a big announcement when it comes to a coaching legend here locally retiring. I'm going to ask Paul about that as well and what he's got going on at Hit Factory and his whole perspective for a guy that's been in and around baseball for the last 50 years or so. What does he think about the JuanSoto deals and all things MLB? And then at 2 o'clock today, we're going to finish it off the only way we know how with Sara Walsh, NFL Network, TNT Sports. We're going to talk some Buccaneer football. We're going to break down the Steelers-Eagles matchup, the Keystone State matchup. That's what she's covering this week. So let's hear what she's got to say. Russell Wilson against Jalen Hurts. What does she think about the whole dynamic between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown? There's a lot going on there. And then, of course, some U.S. soccer talk as she's been covering the men and the women. What does she think of the men's side for Mauricio Pochettino? How's he been doing so far with the U.S. men's national team? Let's get to some of your questions, your comments. Hit them there at the bottom of the screen. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Go check us out there. John Mamola. Hello, my friend. Miss you here. John Mamola out there engineering for our friends at USAA for the Army Navy game. Make sure you're following him on all social media platforms. I know my guys Pat and Aaron are out there as well. So make sure you're showing those guys love. I can't stress this enough. Support local, especially in moments like this where our local guys, Pat and Aaron, can go out there to the nation's capital and represent our city right here. Represent the 813, represent Tampa there on a national landscape. Go support those guys and all my friends over at DAE. Pat and Aaron, they're there working with John Mamola. Hey, man, this is the crazy part of this business. You never know how things are going to go, but really, really cool to see that. Shout out to BR Jude Vo. Hi, Jay. Love the show. Janet Best. So glad to hear you. So glad that you're here, Janet. You've always been a big supporter. Big Dummy Dan as well. Happy holidays to you guys. My guy, David Terry. Jay Bird, what's up, hermano? Russell Welch, hell yeah. And Jeff Taylor, been waiting for Friday just for this podcast. Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin, baby. I am excited for this weekend as well. Saturday night's main event. That's going to be insane. How about UFC event right here at Amalie Arena? I mean, there's so many good things going on here in the Bay Area. Shout out to Louie as well. I mean, there's just so many different sporting events to be able to discuss. I mean, do we think that Kevin Owens is going to beat Cody Rhodes for that title? Oh, should be good. Saturday night, 8 p.m. on NBC. There's just something that's so poetic about the WWE being on primetime television on a Saturday night. It brings me back to my youth, and I know a lot of people can echo those same sentiments. But one of the big things we're looking towards this weekend, and I want to hear from you, Bucs Nation out there, how excited are you about this game on Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers? There's always going to be the San Diego Chargers in my head. I have to, in my mind, I'm just thinking like, not San Diego, not San Diego, not San Diego. The Los Angeles Chargers. What are your thoughts on this game? Do you think the Bucs are going to pull this one out? Feel free, leave those comments at the bottom of the screen. I will certainly play them for you here on the J Recher podcast. And shout out to Sergio. Thank you for the kind words. These are the games that I absolutely love when it comes to sports. It's exciting. It's exciting to watch your team travel cross country and to go up against a solid football team. This is what Jim Harbaugh's team. They are a solid, well-rounded team. And this is a litmus test. This is a measuring stick. But it's exciting because these are the kind of games that are prove-it games. These are the kind of games that are like, all right, what are you all about? What type of football team are you? That's what type of game this is. In year one, Jim Harbaugh's team has proven to be tough as nails. They've got the top scoring defense, giving up less than 16 points a game, and they're a team with the third best turnover margin at plus 11. Justin Herbert does not turn the football over. He's only thrown one interception this year. When you go back and you look at those statistics, you're like, that can't be right. It is. It is. The dude is taking care of the football. Now, he is banged up. He missed practice pretty much all week until yesterday when he was out there with his team. All right, dealing with a sprained ankle, dealing also with a little bit of a hip injury. But I am so excited for this game because, listen, you're supposed to beat the teams that the Buccaneers have just beaten. The last three teams, not great. When you're playing the Panthers, you're playing the Giants, you're playing the Raiders, hey, it is what it is. You have to beat those. Now, I'm not taking anything away from those victories because in order for you to be a good football team, you have to win the games you're supposed to win, even if they're not all Picassos. But this is a matchup right here when you're going against this Chargers team, the way that they're built, the way that they play football. If you go cross country 425 on Sunday and you come out of there with a win, that's one of those plant your flag in the ground type games of we're here, This division is ours. We're heading to the playoffs. If you lose this game, does anybody kind of freak out and say this team's a fraud? I don't think they're going to go that far on that end of the spectrum. But again, this is a prove it type game. This is a what type of football team are you type game. Because one thing that we do know about Jim Harbaugh, whether it was his time at Stanford, whether it was his time in the NFL with San Francisco, whether it was back at Michigan, especially last year's national championship team, and this year's team with the Los Angeles Chargers, this guy understands that the games at any level are won and lost in the trenches. They could have gone out and got a big skill guy with his first round pick. No, he gets Joe Alt at Notre Dame. He knows how important that defensive line is. He knows how important that pass rush is. Oh, yeah, number 1 in sacks in the National Football League, right? When you look at this team, they get it from everywhere. Everywhere. It doesn't matter who's out there. They are going to do whatever it takes to get to the quarterback. I'm sorry, they're not number 1 in the league in sacks. They're number 5 at 39. Still, doesn't take anything away. 39 sacks. And you're only trailing the Broncos, Texans, Ravens, Vikings. That's not bad at all. When I said that, I was like, wait a second. They're not first, they're 5th. But still, you look at the guys on this team that are badass. There's a litany of them, okay? And for all the talk about what Jim Harbaugh was able to do this year in the draft and how he's able to fortify his team, go back to last year's draft. When Jim Harbaugh looked at this roster, he had to have looked at these 2 guys especially, and he was just licking his lips saying, those are 2 cornerstones of my defense. All right, and I know a lot of people going back to the 23 draft class, you'll look at Quentin Johnson, the first-round wide receiver out of TCU. I get that, okay? Skill positions, they're the divas, they're the darlings. Everybody's going to look at them. But I look at 2 guys. I look at, number 1, their second-round pick, Tuli Tuipulotu, their second-round pick out of USC that leads the team with 7.5 sacks, all right? And when you look at Tuli, as they affectionately call him out there, you're talking about a pass rush with Khalil Mack, with Joey Bosa, and with Bud Dupree. Those are 3 guys that have made tens of millions of dollars in the National Football League getting to the quarterback. But it's this kid, the second-year kid out of USC, that's leading the team with 7.5 sacks. He's not a big dude. But when you watch him, he is relentless. He's fantastic with his hands. He finds a way to get to the quarterback. He's relentless. And this team on defense, they work in sync. They're really one of the best teams, I think, to actually watch. They're aesthetically pleased. They play the game the right way. That's one side, right? Now, how about this linebacker, Dion Henley? The 3rd-round pick from last year out of Washington State. He's got the 6th most combined tackles in the National Football League. This guy is everywhere. And when you look at how many tackles he has, right? He's got 122 tackles. The next closest guy in his entire team is 45 tackles behind him, and that's Derwin James. Henley is all over the place. He's a tackling machine. He's the heartbeat of that defense right in the middle. And it's kind of wild to think that how important those 2 guys are, second-year players, when you have the aforementioned Derwin James and Bosa and Mack. Like, this is a really, really good team. And when you look at the offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, those are the guys that are going to have to carry the water in this game. And when they play well, and shout out to Cody Mauch, who had a fantastic game against the Raiders, he's got to do it again. Graham Barton, the rookie center out of Duke. This is one of those games where, okay, if you want to prove that you're a legit team, as I've said before, this is a prove-it type game. The offensive line needs to be one of the best position groups for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. We know what you're going to get from the tackles. You know what you're getting from Wirfs. You know what you're going to get from Gedeke. Bredesen's not 100%. I would think that he was going to play, but Barton and Mauch, those are the 2 guys that I'm looking at in this game. If they can do the job, not just in pass protection, but running the football, that is going to be a key to the success of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday. Now, Bucky Irvin not practicing, did work on the side with the trainer. I don't think you're going to see much of Bucky practicing for the rest of the season. He's already dealt with 3 different injuries this year. He's dealt with the back, dealt with the hip, dealt with the foot/ankle or toe with something in the lower extremity there. You're not going to see much of him practicing. So what does that mean? You're going to see some Rachaad White. You're going to see some Sean Tucker. I do think Bucky Irving's going to play, but regardless of who is in the backfield, regardless, you have to be strong in the trenches. That is going to be a key in this game, offensively, defensively, right? Now, I want to get to this question. Richie P, thanks for bringing in. Chargers Ed Rutgers making me ask, why can't Light hit on a DE in the draft? Is there something he's missing in his analysis? Richie, that's a great point, because you look at Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, you look at Chris Braswell, you look at Yaya Diaby, and I understand people are going to look at Yaya Diaby and say all of his numbers are up except sacks. Well, guys, that's what he's there to do. He's there to sack the quarterback. And I feel like for the last 6, probably longer than that, when it comes to the Buccaneers pass rush, there's always a caveat. There's always all right, well, it's this, but not this. At the end of the day, it's black and white. You got to rush the passer. You got to sack the passer. That's the key. You can get pressures out of the wazoo all you want. You have to get to the quarterback, and you got to get him to the ground. You got to force these guys in a second and long and third and long. You got to get to the quarterback. Pressure is only so good. You got to bring these guys down. And Richie, if you missed it, we had a conversation, a really, really good, solid, informative conversation with Scott Reynolds from Pewter Report last week, or this past Monday on the podcast. I implore you to go back and listen to it. And he spoke about the coaches. He spoke about the coaches and their lack of developing these pass rushers. Because internally, I think they do a great job. When you look at the job done by Vita Vea, when you look at the job done by Kalijah Cansey, when you even come at times and you see like CJ Brewer picked up a couple sacks in one game earlier this year, and at times you see Logan Hall get to the quarterback. It's very weird, but the outside pass rush is almost non-existent. For all those people, for all these years that are talking about, all right, well, the outside pass rushers need guys, in the middle to do their job. Well, they are doing their job, right? Or people saying that, all right, you need an internal pass rush to help the guys on the outside. Well, they're there. They're there. What's the excuse? What's the excuse for Yaya Diaby not having more sacks, or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, or Chris Braswell? I mean, he's the second-round pick. You got to see more from these guys. And I don't put it all on the coaches, but I think they do share some of the blame. They have to shoulder some of this blame. They have to. They have to make sure that they're putting these guys in a position to succeed. And you don't think coaching makes a difference, as Scott said earlier this week? Look at the offensive side of the ball. This team could not run the football at all the last 2 years, whether it's Byron Leftwich or Dave Canales. Here comes Liam Cohen with these incredible schemes, with his pre-snap motion, with these, he's pulling these guards and they're crushing these guys, and they're opening up a hole for these running backs, any of the three. Coaching has something to do with it. And you want to talk about pulling guards, you want to talk about creative plays to run the football, you're going to see that from the Chargers as well. Their offensive game plan, when you watch them, and you've seen some of this stuff before, Greg Roman's their offensive coordinator. And you saw Greg Roman in San Francisco with Kaepernick and the 49ers. You saw Greg Roman in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So you kind of know what you're going to get from Greg Roman, right? You're going to be creative running the football. You're going to be effective in the short passing game to look to extend that defense. And this is something that the Buccaneers need to be cognizant about. Baker Mayfield, of course, and I know somebody put it here. Shout out to David Terry. Baker has to be better. No turnovers has to happen. I couldn't agree with you more, David. Couldn't agree with you more. This team, more than likely, is not going to turn the football over. That's just the way it goes. Number one in turnover margin. So for me, in order for them to be successful this week against the Los Angeles Chargers, the Buccaneers just have to get back to the basics. It's the fundamentals. It's winning the battle in the trenches, winning the turnover margin. And I think if you do that, you give yourself a really good chance to win this game. All right, let's flip the script a little bit and let's bring in one of the best. You see him everywhere in his travels. You see him on ESPN, the MLB Network. It just doesn't stop for the one and only, the X-Man, Xavier Scruggs. What's going on, brother? I appreciate you joining me today.
Hey, what's going on, Jay? I appreciate you having me, man.
Bro, what's up? I just saw like some photo shoot looking thing. I thought it was like a modeling agency. I mean, you got the swagalicious for days, man.
Hey, yeah, I had to post. Sometimes every now and then you got to remind people that you're capable of doing some different things. So if I needed to get into the modeling space, maybe that was something I could dabble into. So you just got to test some things out every now and then.
Hey, you know me in the shoe game, buddy. So that's always something that
Yeah.
I always try to bring to the table. Let's just get into the biggest story in the baseball world, man. This whole Juan Soto thing, and it's crazy how this is kind of even in smack dab in the middle of football season. Like the Juan Soto saga has really taken the sports world by storm. What was your initial reaction to hearing the numbers and the fact that he went from the boogie down Bronx to now in Queens with the Mets?
No, I mean, I was shocked, honestly. I wasn't shocked by the team he chose. I knew the Mets would have the most amount of money to probably offer Juan Soto, but I just figured that somebody whose, main tool is just hitting and doesn't really offer too many other things to the table as far as speed, as far as being a two-way guy, defense. None of those other things come into play with Juan Soto. It's all about the bat for him. So I wasn't thinking that someone would pay upwards towards $765 million just for that one main service, right? Like you think about Otani getting 700 million and having to defer most of that money as well with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I just didn't think that that was where Juan Soto was going to go. But obviously I was wrong. And so were a lot of people in the industry. And it just reminds you how important it is to, as an offense, to have that type of guy, right? At that age, 26 years old, to be able to go out there and show an offensive prowess the way he does. I was shocked, but at the same time, that's where the game is going. Walks and power are everything.
Yeah, and I love his approach to the plate, right? I mean, this is a guy that I remember early on in the season, he was in a battle in the ninth inning against one of the toughest lefties in the game, and Josh Hader in Houston, and he worked the at bat, and slapped a single the other way to give the Yankees the lead. And then you see what he was able to do in the postseason, some home runs and some big hits against some of the best relievers in the game. But I look at this, and I said this, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. I truly believe that the Yankees dodged a bullet here because they had to go to the table. It was one of those things where they could not offer him, but they need more. I mean, you look at it, you had a lot of guys playing out of position at their end of game adjustments. The fact that they had to take their starting second baseman, Gleyber Torres, out for defensive replacement, that's not a position. Usually that's one of your stronger defenders at second base. So, you had Osvaldo Cabrera there. You had Jazz, who I thought over exceeded expectations at third base because people were wondering when the shoe was going to drop there. But he's a middle guy. He could play second. He could play center. And even Judge playing center field in the World Series, he drops that ball. So, I mean, it's rare that you see a team go to the World Series and you have at the end of game 3 guys that are really not playing natural positions. Yeah. I think if you take that money, they've already spent over 200 mil on Max Fried, but I think if you go out and get a Bregman, you go out and get trade for a Tucker or a Bellinger, I think this could actually work for the Yankees' advantage because even if they got Soto, they were going to have to fill those holes anyway. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. The only problem with that is that doesn't guarantee you a spot back in the World Series either, So I just look at it's hard to bypass, and that's why you see them offer the type of money that he had to turn down just for the opportunity to go to the Mets. It's hard to kind of say, okay, we're just going to be okay without having Juan Soto back because we saw the impact that he had on that team, right? Even some of those weaknesses that you're talking about with Juan Soto, their team still made it to the World Series. So now it's like, it was almost like a win-win situation. It's like, if you sign Juan Soto, you have the opportunity to do exactly what you did last year, game plan it around that. Now it's a plan B. You go out and be able to maybe spend that money. We know that they have the money, right? But now are we able to be smart about that money? How can we divvy it up? And don't forget, Jay, like the players on their own end have choices too, right? So like we can easily say, hey, you can go get a Bregman, you can go trade a Bellinger, you can go get a Christian Walker at first base, whatever it may be. But remember, those players have the opportunity to decide, okay, I don't want to go to New York, right? That we saw Soto specifically say, you know what, a little bit of money is a big difference for me, and I'm going to go to the Mets. So the same is going on, the same ideas for the other players that could be considering New York as well. And I just think about, if the Mets are able to spend that type of money on Juan Soto, they're going to be wanting to spend it on an Alex Bregman too. They're going to want to spend it on a Corbin Burns too. They're going to want to spend it on the available free agents. And don't forget about Toronto, who was willing to spend that type of money, and the same thing for the Boston Red Sox. The Yankees are going to be still competing against a lot of other teams willing to spend that same money.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I look at the way that they were able to get to the World Series because Houston's been so dominant the last couple of years, and they've kind of taken a step back. I don't think Baltimore really took that next step forward with all of that young talent that they have. And I mean, Toronto was down. The Rays had a bunch of injuries. I want to ask you about the Rays. They're playing at Steinbrenner Field this year on the Hillsborough side of the bridge here. You've been a guy that you've played in a lot of different teams, a lot of different ballparks. If you were a player on the Tampa Bay Rays, knowing that you weren't playing at Tropicana Field this year, that you were playing in Hillsborough on the Tampa side, like what would your mindset be going into this season?
It'd be tough to say because I've never experienced something like that, right. But I would think as a player, you're just trying to keep yourself as focused as possible on just producing, right? And it's easier said than done because you're now not going to be at a major league stadium, right? Like all those major league amenities that you're used to having, those will not be the same. They will be different, right? I think the opportunity to play in Tampa is special though, because yes, St. Pete, you have the whole ballpark is enclosed, right? Normally, great conditions as far as inside, especially during the summer. But I think that we've seen it too. A South Tampa fan base is something special within itself, especially with the Lightning. We've seen it with the Bucs. So I wonder if there's an opportunity to see some more of that support, which could be more exciting for a player. But specifically speaking to the performance is like, no matter where I'm playing at, I got to go out there and perform. Maybe there's a way I can take advantage of some differences in the ballpark. If I'm a hitter, the ball flying out a little bit to right center, the wind will obviously be a factor. Hey, how can I take advantage of that and gear my game towards that as a hitter? Same thing goes for defensively and as a pitcher. But you got to be focused on going out there, and no matter what ballpark it is, you got to put up numbers.
A guy that really excited a lot of Rays fans last year was Junior Caminero. I mean, you're talking about one of the best young players in baseball. I mean, he's got a nice swing. He's a guy that's going to be locked down third baseman. I know there's people echoing the name Adrian Beltre, and I was like, whoa, calm out there, man, because I think he's one of the most underrated baseball players in the last 20 years, Adrian Beltre. That he could just do a little bit of everything, and he's got a smile on his face every time that he does it. From what you saw last year, what did you like about Junior Caminero, and what do you think he's got to work on to be, to kind of take that next step in his progression in 2025?
He hits the ball harder than anybody at his age. I mean, the ball rockets off his bat. I've been down there at the Trop, been down there even when I was in the minor leagues. Listening to the sound off of his bat is different. Now it's just consistency, right? Are they going to let him just go out there and play? When does he get the opportunity to man the shortstop position, right? I think a lot of that is just development at the big league level now. And we talk a lot about consistency as major league players, but a lot of that is approach, right? Like, how can I hone in on my approach at the plate to where I'm staying ahead of the count? I'm in 1-0, I'm in 2-0 counts a lot. I'm not getting behind 0-2 early. I'm not getting behind 1-2 early. That's plate discipline. That's a lot of what we talk about Juan Soto, and the difference he has is he's able to have the strike awareness, the plate discipline, the ability to look at how do I attack hitters and figure out what they're bringing to me. Those are the things that Junior will start to have to bring to the table a little bit more consistently, but the athleticism is there. You can tell he has fun playing the game. You can tell he's not scared. And I can tell you firsthand, being a rookie at the major league level, it's hard not to be nervous. It's hard not to be anxious. But I think he's got all of those tools that allow him to just go out there and play and have fun. And I think he's going to be a solid Tampa Bay Ray for a long time.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does in 2025. This is such a great part of the baseball year because the hot stove is buzzing right now. Who's one player, give me a position player and a pitcher that you're keeping an eye on over the next couple weeks that could be finding a new home or returning back to a place that they've already applied their trade.
Yeah, Anthony Santander. We obviously got to see him a lot playing against the Rays on the Orioles, but I think a switch hitter that has some real juice is going to give some team an absolute boost. And with JuanSoto signing, that's kind of the next guy up as far as outfield goes outside of trades, right? He's a free agent. A lot of teams are looking at him. He can help any lineup because he's a switch hitter, right? But also plays a solid right field. And also he's been a mainstay for the Orioles, like a leader. So I think there's a lot of teams that could use that type of player as well. So that's a guy that I'm looking out for. And I continue to look at Seattle, if we can stay in the American League for a minute. Like Seattle's one of those teams that needs guys to hit. Like they have an amazing young staff of starting pitchers, and now they just need bats. And I think that's one of the teams that I would look out for going and getting one of those types of bats. And then I think the next thing is just from a pitching standpoint, who the whole Corbin Burns thing, right? Like, is it going to be Boston? Is it going to be one of these teams that goes out there and says, let's go get the best available? Who's that going to be? That's another one of those guys that I'm waiting to see, especially after the Garrett Crochet trade. So I'm wondering who's going after Corbin Burns now.
It's funny with the White Sox and the Red Sox, they're not shy to, make a trade. We saw Chris Sale, years ago, and now we see another left-hander being moved. What's up with your one of your old teams, man, the St. Louis Cardinals? I've always had such a high level of respect for them because it's just like it's baseball purity, man. It really is. But one of my favorite players, Nolan Arenado's there, and it looks like he's a name that's being bandied about that could be moved. And where has it all gone wrong there? Where they're consistent pretty much every year. They're going to play a good brand of baseball, but they really haven't been able to kind of push over and get to the hump, not winning the division. Like, what do you see with this Cardinals team, and then also the future for Nolan Arenado?
Well, Jay, I think honestly a great question because the Cardinals have always kind of been a staple of excellence, right? And I think honestly it's been a step back in player development. And I'm not saying necessarily they don't have the right people in place when it comes to the minor league staffs and all that stuff. I'm just saying we're so used to seeing young, talented players come out of that organization and impacting the big league team immediately.
Right.
And we're just not seeing that as of the past few years. And normally we're used to seeing it on the pitching side. And I think that's where they've really taken a step back. They don't really have any strikeout guys besides Sonny Gray, and he was acquired via free agency. But when I look at that, I think that's what St. Louis has to get back to. Another thing too is, when I think about Nolan Arenado, that's something where the Cardinals are going to have to eat a lot of that money, right? Like not a lot of teams are going to want to pay top dollar money for a guy that seems to be trending the opposite direction. Even the defense took a step back. And I love Nolan Arenado, came up playing against him in the minor leagues. The Tulsa Drillers he was on, and I remember being on Springfield Cardinals playing against him all the time. But now you start to see when guys hit a certain age, defensively, they might take a step back, right? But offensively, he hasn't been the same player too. So they're going to have to pay a good chunk of that money, and they're going to have to really focus on getting back to player development. I do want you and anybody listening to keep an eye on Jordan Walker. He was obviously a highly touted prospect and has gotten a little bit of opportunity, but not enough right now at the big league level. And I want them to go out there and just let him play, let him show what he can do for a full season, because I think he's a star if they allow him to really go out there and shine.
They've had good position players too, man. You think of the last 10 years of like all the names that have, whether it was like a Grichuk or a Bader or a Dylan Carlson, like they've had guys where they're like, look at this
Tyler O'Neill now
Tyler
too.
O'Neill, yeah. So you're like, man, there's going to be so many good players, and they just really haven't taken that next step, which is really sad to see. I wanted to ask you this. It's not a baseball question. I don't know if you saw what happened last night in the 49ers-Rams game where Devondre Campbell, veteran linebacker, left in the third quarter of the game when the coaches told him to go into the game. And usually, you'll hear after the game, like they might defend the player. You don't know what's going on, but to a man, whether it was the coach, whether it was the star players and like guys like George Kittle, and even obviously today on TV, they're ripping Devondre. And this isn't a rookie. This is a guy that's been a Pro Bowl type of player. He's been around the league, but he just gets up and leaves in the third quarter when they tell him to go into the game because he wasn't starting, because Dre Greenlaw, one of the heartbeats of the team, the San Francisco 49er, comes back after sustaining an Achilles injury last year. How crippling is that as a former professional athlete? How crippling is that for a player? Because to me, it seems like career suicide. But I mean, how do you come back from that, X? Because it seems like that's the last time we're probably going to see anything from him.
Yeah, it's hard to, because, as we know in the sports world, everything is kind of a priority to put the team first, right? Obviously, there's always individual games within a team sport, but the attitude aspect of things and the reaction aspect of things, you have to keep your emotions in check, and not let it cost the team, right? There's a difference when those emotions cost yourself a play or two, but when you're costing the team and you're leaving the guys that you're going out there to battle with out there on their own, and not feeling like you are supporting that, that's disappointing. And nobody loves that. Everybody kind of takes it a certain way. And, I don't know his personality specifically, but obviously there are some things going on inside his own dome that he's dealing with, right? That he is not happy about. And that just can't affect the team. So honestly, as a teammate, you feel like you've been let down. And I feel like that's kind of the sentiment we've heard from a lot of the players and coaches after last night.
Yeah, it's sad because it's just you're right. That's not something that just popped up out of nowhere. There's a fire, there's an ember burning within this dude that's just like he's pissed about something, and that just came to a head, and he's like, no, screw you, I'm not going in the game. And it's one thing if he's a backup, nobody's ever heard. This is Devondre Campbell, babe. We saw him with the Falcons. He did a great job with Green Bay. He's going to San Francisco, where listen, they haven't had the greatest regular season, but there's a lot of big time pros in there, and for him to play as well as he has, like, he's not a weak guy, right? He's a tough dude. So I just hope, and I know a lot of people want to pile on now, but I just hope that there's something not more serious, because as you alluded to before, you never know what's going on between a guy's ears. We started with JuanSoto. I want to end with JuanSoto. Over the next decade, which team is going to be more successful, the Mets or the Yankees?
That's a good question. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to say the Mets. And I say the Mets because I think the money that we've already seen willing to be spent by Steve Cohen, I think it tells you how passionate he is about winning, right? And I'm not saying money's going to buy you championships, but it's going to buy you some opportunity. And we saw it with the Dodgers over this past year, right? They went out and got Shohei Ohtani. Immediately a World Series comes right to them. But what I do think is I think there's going to be a certain standard, because not just because of the money being spent, but he brought in last year the right guy too, in a David Stearns from the Brewers, and coming from a smaller market, learning how to develop the organization from the ground up. I think once you have money and the ability to develop young players and make the farm system extremely strong, that's a recipe for success. And we've seen it with a lot of these teams like the Dodgers. We were talking about the St. Louis Cardinals as well. I think that's one area in which I think the Yankees have really never been great at, is that development side from the ground up. So I think the Mets may be taking a step forward here. I may be wrong, but I think JuanSoto is a good start at least.
Yeah, you got that right. And Stearns sounds a lot like the Dodgers general manager, Andrew Friedman, and we all know where he came from, the Tampa Bay Rays. So you're right. And I don't think the Yankees have ever, it's out of necessity, right? The Yankees have never had to cry poor and to really had to focus.
And they've always been the top spender.
Yeah.
So, and with that came World Series. And now if there's another top spender, why shouldn't we expect the Mets to go out there and be able to make some noise from a World Series aspect?
You got that right, my friend. The one and only Xavier Scruggs. You're going to see him everywhere during baseball season. MLB Network, ESPN. He does it all. X, always appreciate you and your time and your friendship. Keep doing everything, my man. And happy holidays to you and the fam. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Same to you, Jay. Appreciate you.
All right, buddy. The one and only Xavier Scruggs. He's one of those guys when people ask, like, what kind of person is he off camera, off microphone? How great is he? Is he that great of a dude? 1000%. And that, I think, is the common theme for the show today, because our very next guest is the same exact way. The one and only Gabby Shirley, Tampa Bay Lightning reporter, FanDuel Sports Network. Where everybody wants to know, where are you right now? Somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Where are you at?
Where is Waldo, right, Jay?
Yes.
I'm currently in Seattle.
Oh, did you guys leave last night or this morning?
Yes, we flew from Calgary last night. We got not actually too late in the grand scheme of things. And then I had to get right to bed because I wanted to look fresh for this podcast. My first time on. I have been awful to get a hold of. Like, because you're one of my favorites. So thank you so much for trying me again and inviting me to join.
Oh, man, it's so happy that you're on the program today. And listen, and I'm sure that I've said this when you joined us on the radio, but to see your path and your journey over the last couple of years has been truly inspiring. And to see all these like fans out there, these Lightning fans, and especially the young girls out there that just look up to you. I mean, it's just so great. You want to talk about great things happening to great people, all of our listeners and viewers today. I mean, Gabby really is one of the best people, a dear friend of me. So of mine. So I'm just so happy for you and all your success, and to see you traveling all over the world with our Tampa Bay Lightning and doing such a great job. I couldn't be more proud of you. So congratulations on all your success. You keep it going. And I love your shirt today. I actually have the t-shirt of that somewhere around here somewhere. I was actually cleaning up the other night. Right? But what was it like last night where it's just like every time you look up, there's another goal and another goal and another goal. And then Jake Gensel scores a hat trick. And it's like, yeah, you had, and Coop said it so great in the post-game press conference. Oh yeah, we forgot like Cooch had 6 points. It's just so crazy. Like, that's one of those games you're never gonna forget.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal game. I guess, right, Jay? Always from my perspective, it's probably best. You can probably get a feel for it the best when like second period and the game's tied or we're up one, down one, and I am strategizing for questions on a win and questions on a loss. And it's a little bit like that in the first period, second period as well. So we're down 1-0, and I got a certain set, and then Kucherov ties it with like a couple minutes to go, and like, all right, that's out the window. Like, let's focus on tie game. Like, we were down 1 goal, and it was a good first period for the Lightning. But tied going into the second after the goal by Cooch, a breakaway, which Jay doesn't always go in his favor. We've seen him before, and he is such a phenomenal and tries a lot of different things, but he scored on that one. That was awesome. And then the Lightning come back, big lead in the second, couple power play goals, but then they let Calgary back into it, and they were only up by 1. And then third period, John Cooper said it best. Yeah, we scored 4 goals. That's great, but I was more proud of the way we defended. We defended ourselves to a win. They got goals in the process, but it all starts with defense. And yes, it was a great game. The superstars were the superstars, but still, Jay, I felt like everyone was contributing. We had a new defenseman in there because Victor Hedman was a late no-go. He's battling a little something, and the Lightning got it done. It was wonderful.
And then JJ Moser left too. So you didn't have Chernak, you didn't have Hedman, Moser leaves. And, to be able to play that final 20 the way that they did with, right, just kind of, all right, you go with him and you go with him. And I mean, I thought that was the most, they scored 8 goals, but I thought that was the most impressive thing of the entire night, to be able to see, all these different guys to be able to step in, playing with partners that maybe they're not used to playing with all that much. But I feel like when the Lightning are at their best this year, Gab, it's when everybody contributes. As much as how great Nikita is and Pointer is, and I love Gensel, but it just seems like when you're getting goals from like Geeky and Hagel and Sorelli, and then you're playing strong defensively, they have the big cat. I mean, I just feel like that's when they're at their best. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, 100%, Jay. And we saw it from everyone last night. Right. Geeky was my first intermission interview because he was all over the place, creating different chances. He started on a line with Sorelli and Hagel. It seemed like John Cooper was moving lines already in that first period, but the second period started. Geeky was back out with them. And in the interview, he told me that it's fun playing with those two. And he used the word tenacious when talking about Brandon Hagel, and basically said, like, yeah, like I'm a tough player. Like, I would like to play that way, but like it for sure rubs off there on the ice with those guys. So yes, Jay, 100%. I think everyone played really well. You could feel the energy of a good win. Another little side story, Jay, I'm not sure if you saw, but they had a big Lightning fan. He's from the Calgary area,
Yes.
in Beach, 11 years old, battling brain cancer. And we've met before in Calgary. He's come to Tampa and he was in the building. And John Cooper, you won't be surprised to hear this, Jay, could not have been more wonderful with him, inviting him on the bench for the morning skate, then out on the ice, into the room. He had him do the lineup read before the game. He brought him back to give Andrei Vasilevsky the puck for 500 games. We didn't even talk about that yet. That's like a whole nother layer to it. So it was a really great night.
One thing that I tell people, because you know me covering all the different teams here locally, there's just something different about the Lightning. They're just being, and you know this because you covered them when you were with Channel 8 and you covered them kind of from afar, and you know, you were in the media, right? You were in the local media. Now that you're in the organization, traveling with the team, I'm sure you have such a unique perspective on things like that, right? I don't think there's any mistake why a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning have been so successful. Because when you look at things like that, when you look at how John Cooper treats people, I've said it here on the podcast before. When I got let go a little bit over a month ago, John Cooper came up to me after the game. Julian Breezeboss stopped me in the elevator, and Steve Griggs, the CEO, stopped me up in the press box. Not saying that I didn't hear from any of the other teams, but it was like those three guys all sought me out and was like, "Are you okay? What can we do to help?" And to see that, to see John Cooper, the way that they've dealt with young kids dealing with unspeakable, sicknesses like this, military, everybody. I mean, it's no surprise that they're so successful on the ice, because what the Lightning do as an organization off the ice, it just, I think it's incomparable. I truly believe they're one of the best teams in all of sports.
Yeah, Jay, I did what I should never do and read comments on X. Just kidding. People aren't that terrible. But I saw one and someone was commenting on one of the videos of Easton and the team. And the point was like, wow, like they're so like genuine. Like they actually are enjoying inviting him in and chatting with him, this little 11-year-old kid that they've met once. And I like that, like really hit the nail on the head. Like it is so true. It's never a chore or, oh, it's too much, or we got to change our routine to accommodate. Like it is like, yes, yes, yes. What more can we do? Bring him in, go get him. And from everyone, top down. And yeah, it's great being on this side of things.
It's never conditional, right? It's never like, oh, we'll do this, but this has to be like, it's just
Correct.
whether it's Coop's catch or whether it's, just anything, any way to give back to the community, the Tampa Bay Lightning do so. And I just saw something. I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was Bleacher Report just put out an article, the 20 best franchises since the year 2000. And the Lightning came in at number 9 out of the 4 major sports. Now, if you go the last 10 years, they might be higher up on the list.
Right.
But to think in the last 25 years, they've been to the Cup final five times. I think 5 times. Yeah, 5 times because they won in 2004. So they 5 times. They've won it 3 times. And you're talking about a team that since 2000, they're higher than teams like the Yankees, right? I mean, it's pretty wild to think where they're at. And yeah, I think like number 1 was the Patriots, obviously with Tom Brady, and then you had like the Lakers because they had Shaq and Kobe and all those, and the Spurs and the Warriors, and you get I think the Chiefs are number 7 and the Penguins, I think, were number 8, but they had 3 cups, obviously. But wow, just to see Lightning and the Lightning grow, it's just pretty wild to see a team that's in the state of Florida, because you and I we're not from down here, to be able to see the Lightning grow and to be one of the top 10 franchises in the last 25 years in sports. That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
It really is, Jay. And again, I'm not sure if this fully encompasses all that you just touched on there, but my brothers who live up in Pennsylvania came down to Tampa, Jay. They have come down a few times, not much. They're not big travel guys. I give them a hard time all the time, but they attended their first game at Amalie Arena.
Wow.
On the road, like in Philly. I think they met me in DC, but first time at Amalie Arena. And obviously we were out and about. They were only here for a couple days. And the continual like comment I got was like, wow, like look at that huge Go Bolt sign, like on this random in the middle of nowhere. Like, oh my God, there's another one. Oh, wow, look at that. Like, the Lightning are everywhere. And right, Jay, I think the success helps. I think the character, if you will, of the organization helps. But I feel like when I think of Tampa, I think of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
No, I'm with you. And the people, listen, if you have disposable income in some way and you can only spend, if you're a family of four and you have $200 to spend on something, are you going to the movies? Are you going to a football game, baseball game? Are you going to a hockey game, right? You know that you're not just going to a hockey game. It's an event. And as soon as you walk into that building, all the friendly people at Amalie Arena, you hear Greg Wolf getting everybody fired up in the crowd. Once Sonia Bryson Kirksey sings the national anthem, you're like, oh my God, you get goosebumps. I get it every single time. And I've heard her do it probably 500 times already, right? Like, so it's wild that it's such a great experience for even people that aren't the biggest hockey fans. They walk out of that door as Tampa Bay Lightning fans, and that'll probably never change. I wanted to ask you this because you've been there on this trip. John Cooper's about to coach Team Canada in the Four Nations face-off. This is a big deal, and I don't know if we talk about it enough here locally, but him being the head coach of Team Canada in a competition like this is something that there's a lot of pressure. Braden Point's on this team, Anthony Cirelli, Hagel's on this team. We know there's other Julian's involved, right? When you listen to the media up in Canada, when you're on like a trip like this, talk to Cooper, what is that interaction like? Because there's got to be some kind of like reverence, like you're the guy. Like that's got to be one of the best, like one of the most high profile. This is their sport, right? I mean, this is their national sport. And for John Cooper, our coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, to be the head coach of Team Canada for not just the Four Nations, but it looks like the Olympics too. What's that interaction like with the Canadian media and John Cooper?
Jay, as you would expect, they are all over it. They have questions that could go on for days. And personally, I love hearing like their take, their side of things, what they're thinking in regards to this upcoming Four Nations face-off. But I think we got it, not worse, but perhaps the biggest scrum, if you will, was in Edmonton. And obviously it was chatting about Connor McDavid specifically. John Cooper is such a great interview, Jay. He really is. He said, I've been talking with Connor McDavid throughout this entire process, right? A superstar like that, like you want to make sure you get his opinion. And also John said, like, I need to know what puts him in the best possible position to succeed. I want to know that so I can do it for him and for our team. This is a huge honor. So John Cooper definitely hit on how exciting this is going to be, how important it is for him. However, Jay, I will say, I personally feel like there's a little bit of like the Tampa Bay Lightning, we have a game that's happening in a couple hours or tomorrow. Like, this can wait. So again, he takes the questions. I always think they're very interesting. I love hearing his response, but I feel a little bit, I could be totally off, but I feel a little bit of like, all right, like, I need to get 2 points here. Like this can wait. We're not to February just yet.
Yeah, and you know as well as I do, sometimes those morning skate scrums go off the rails. You just don't know what's going on. We could talk about, years ago, John Cooper's like, were you shaved? You're just talking about my hair for like 5 minutes. We're talking about Paul Kennedy's sweaters because he has every pastel possible, right? He's got like egg like sea foam and eggshell. He's got them all.
Periwinkle.
Yeah. What is it like? Take us through working with the FanDuel crew. Obviously we remember here locally like Fox, and then it was Bally, now it's FanDuel, but working with, the whole crew over there, behind the scenes, in front of the camera, we all love them. But just for you on a daily basis to be able to work with those guys, especially guys like Randorf and Engblom, that's got to be a lot of fun.
I know, Jay. The faces and voices that perhaps our listeners right now would recognize: Dave Randorf, our play-by-play commentator, and Brian Engblom, our color analyst. As you know, Jay, I was in local news. Like, this is my first time being on this side of things, and I don't think I could have dreamed of a better duo for what they do during the games and just for how they treat me. Like, they are so wonderful. I can ask them anything and they'll be there to help me. I love, it's been happening more, Jay. So maybe that means I'm on a roll. But Brian Engblom, I'll get the random mid-game, or actually I would say it's usually pre-game text about like, wow, that was a really good question in your bench interview. Or I can't believe so-and-so said that, like, awesome job. Like, just like, I don't know. He doesn't have to say that. They're just phenomenal, really. Again, I can talk to them about anything. They've always been so helpful and so gracious to me. And Jay, I learn so much from them. Brian Engblom in particular, you know this. He has the craziest, funniest, most entertaining stories from back in the day, his hockey career. Like, I could listen to him forever. And then behind the scenes, I have two really great producers. Brad Bartle is our game producer, and John Harrell is our pregame, postgame. Same thing, Jay. Like, they're just so helpful. I can always bounce things off of them. I have them in my ear all game. So we're chatting about different things. Who should we interview? Will this in-game hit fit here? Did you see if so-and-so got hurt on this play? Like, just the whole range of things. And it's really a pleasure. Like, I have no complaints.
I'm glad you said that about what Brian said to you, because it just means different coming from certain people, right? I mean, I've had that in my career too, where somebody will text me like, that was a really great interview. And it's by somebody that I really respect. And it's just like, we all like to be told nice things, right? It doesn't mean like that's all we do it for, but every once in a while, and depending on who the source is, right? Like that, it means that much more. And I don't want to give too much of a peek behind the curtain, but you've always been so honest and transparent about your transition to become the team reporter. I remember you and I speaking very early on in your career, like, hey, if you hear anything, just let me know. Like, and I truly believe that's why you've been able to grow so much and to be able to establish yourself as such a important voice in our Tampa Bay area when it comes to the Lightning, because you've been so humble embarking on this journey, and you've been open to criticism, and you've been open to, just knowledge and tidbits along the way. If you don't, it's continuously, like, you have to continue to learn, right? You have to, use all of this information that we're getting from these people. Like, what are you and I gonna tell us that, like, Phil Esposito and Brian Engblom, like,
Exactly.
Engblom's got his name on the cup 2 times for, you know what I mean? So you're like, yeah, Brian, tell me whatever the hell you want. I'm going with it.
I'm listening, and I will follow. Whatever it is. Yes, I am all ears. And also, Jay, I think you can relate to this, and perhaps the people that, not that this is me, but have great success in whatever they do. Like, the questions that I ask, right, in games a little different because you're based on the game, have 20 minutes in a period. But those pregame questions, Jay, I am nonstop thinking about them in my mind. Should I change this word? Like, is that too soft? Is it too much about the hometown? Should I focus more on the game? You know what? Let's switch this one. Like, so there's a lot from my end. I'm a little paranoid, but there's a lot of thought that goes into that. I'm not just stepping up there and winging it. So when he says something like that, and from what I know of thinking about that for the past 48 hours, it means a lot.
Tell me about, I think what flies under the radar sometimes, and you realize it sometimes, are Mikey and Gabe and their crew, and all the video production that they do, the social media stuff. Like, those guys are so top notch. And I know you spend a lot of time with them as well. It just seems like whatever our guys, Mikey Holleran and Gabe Marte, whatever they touch turns to gold.
Yes.
It's just phenomenal to be able to watch those guys do their job.
Jay, again, I just work with unreal individuals. Yes, everything they put out is phenomenal. And me talking about just preparing, obviously I'm passionate about this job, Jay, but those two in particular they care so much, which is like a key to why they are so good at what they do. And I guess, Jay, again, this might sound a little silly, but coming from local news, I was the reporter, and I also would film things. I would go out with my camera and kind of do, the one-man band show. I would film, I would put it together. I'm writing the story. I feel like I'm a decent, back in the day when I did longer form pieces, like, I would really pride myself on, like, the storytelling. Now it's kind of condensed. My storytelling really comes in like 30-second hits. So it's changed a bit, But Jay, working with the Lightning, Recharge, for example, our behind the scenes show, I am so honored to be invited on some shoots to interview the players, kind of help out while they're doing all the filming and making sure it looks beautiful. And then Jay, right, the final episode that comes out, there is a beautiful story told in there. I did not touch it. I did not see it until there was a first approval. Like, these Gabe, Mikey, they are filming, they are thinking of the theme, they are putting together the work, like they are doing it all. And I don't know, I guess that just surprised me, and not to take anything away from photographers in local news, but the photographers that I previously worked with, it was not their job to create the story.
Right.
Gabe and Mikey, they do it all. Everything, every time something comes out, like I'm just amazed. I am just amazed. It's always so well done.
They're fantastic. Before I get you out of here, Cheryl, a huge Lightning fan. I got to meet her at the last live block party at the tap room there. So excited for the Four Nations face-off. I'll be in Montreal to see all 4 teams play. Good for you, Cheryl. Good luck to John Cooper, but I am a little torn since I am American. I was thinking about that when you were talking about him dealing with the Canadian media. I mean, as much as I love Coop and I love Sorelli, Hagel, and Pointer, it's just like, I guess, I mean, do we cheer? We can't cheer for Canada, right? I mean, we're Americans, damn it. Like, what do we do here?
Again, Jay, maybe I'm brainwashed at this point, but like, I didn't even consider rooting for USA.
And what about Jake Gensel? And Hetty, the captain of the team. He's going to be the Sweden. Like, it's... Oh.
You're right. Let me take that back. I think I've been focused on rooting for individual players rather than the full Team USA, Team Canada, Team Sweden. But yeah, I'm so excited for that tournament. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think our players are really excited too. Yeah. Again, maybe I was so far off, but that all-star break, if you are not an all-star, a lot of the guys are in the Caribbean. So I was wondering if there would be any sort of like, but I can honestly say, like, I have not seen it. People are so excited. I had a chance to talk to Brandon Hagel's dad, Dwayne, at the game in Edmonton. He was also in Calgary. We met him on our Bolts Beginnings trip. So him and I are like this. I think that and the Team Canada came up, and without, saying too much, he just kept reiterating, like, I wish I was with Brandon when he found out. Like, it means so much. It's such an honor. Like, I really wish I was with him. And then he followed that up by saying that he lives in Edmonton, Brandon's in Tampa. So the one-on-one time that those two have is not a lot. I think Dwayne is coming for the holidays in December. And he said, like, I already told Brandon, like, let's just go to lunch, like the two of us, because Gabby, like, I want to make sure I tell him, like, face to face, like, how proud I am. And like, right, Jay? Like, so it means a lot, not just to the players, but to their families as well.
And to think about it too, with Brandon Hagel, and this is a guy that not very little known guy when he came to the national landscape when the Lightning picked him up from Chicago a couple of years ago. And now he's playing on Team Canada, Gabby. That's insane.
It's insane. Yep.
Feel so happy for him. The one and only Gabby Shirley, happy for you and all your success, my good friend. You're a great example that great things happen to great people. I appreciate your time. Stay warm up there in Seattle, and I'll see you next week when you guys get back to Emily Arena. I appreciate it, my friend. Talk soon.
Jay, get me on again, would you? This was too short.
23 minutes. Everybody else is begging off after 15. Gabby's like, 23 minutes. All right, real quick. All right, fine. Last question. Give me 3 more minutes. What are you going to do during the break then? Four Nations face-off.
Okay, Jay, I am also torn because I think that perhaps like a little getaway would be nice. I got to run it by my boss, Brian Briesman. But
I thought you were gonna say your husband.
Oh no, my take a vacation.
No, because it's funny because I don't know why. Like I call my girlfriend Stephanie my boss. So when anybody asks me to do something, I gotta go check on my boss. And especially now that I just got let go a month ago, everybody's like, "What do you mean, your boss?" And I'm like, "Steph." They're like, "Oh, that makes sense." Okay, so that's it. Threw me off. But yeah, Breeze, come on, Breezer.
You're a good man, Jay. Yeah, so I got to check with Breeze. I thought that maybe a little getaway would be lovely. However, like, I want to be locked in for every single one of these.
I know.
So I'm honestly a little bit torn.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go, but you're like, all right, can I go? But as long as there's a place where there's cable TV and I can see these games.
Right, there is, but I'm like, when I'm on vacation, like I am the girl, like I'm not going to sit in my room and watch. This is different, but I'm not going to sit in my room and watch Netflix. Like I want to be out. I want to be exploring. I want to, so being inside for hockey games that I really am dying to watch. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say like watch them at like a swim up bar, but is that
But then
going to be
you're
a
not
place that's going to
focused.
want to watch hockey? Yeah, I know.
Tweeting when Jake Gensel scores another hat trick, like
How's he been?
I'm laughing, Jay, because he is so funny in this particular regard. Hopefully he won't hate me for saying this, but he says yes to all things, right? We obviously ask the players, hey, can you do this pregame bench interview? But he will give it to me because it's probably not his favorite thing. And last game against Calgary, I had him pregame on the bench. Then he scored the hat trick and I had him postgame. And he comes over after getting off the ice and is like, oh my gosh, John Cooper was standing right there, Jay. And John turns around and he's like, hey, Gens, like, if you don't want to do an interview, like, stop scoring 3 goals. Like, and like shrugged his shoulders. But we've obviously seen what he can do on the ice. He came in, Jay. Everyone was talking about the hockey IQ. To me, I still feel like I'm learning so much about the game. Like, I couldn't really figure out or visualize exactly what that meant. But just watching him, no matter who he's out there on the ice with, the plays that he makes, the passes that he makes, like, yes, hockey IQ is high. He can play with Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point. I remember there was maybe 1 or 2 games. It was him and Nick Paul when they did 11 forward, 7D. And like those two were phenomenal. So whoever he's out there with, like they just seem to fit. And he's a great guy off the ice. He just doesn't really like when I bother him for interviews.
Yeah, I saw it last night in the post game. You could tell he had like a dry sense of humor and it was just so funny. You could tell that there was something a little bit more behind that conversation that you guys had after the game. But yeah, you look at Jake Gensel and people go, all right, he played with Sidney Crosby. How good is he? Right. But I think that's one of the things that happens maybe in hockey that doesn't happen in the other major sports where you have to be at a certain level to play with guys that good. Like it doesn't happen for everybody. And we have seen in the past, like some people can't play on a line with Point and Kucherov.
Yep.
Some people can't play next to Victor Hedman. It doesn't mean they're not good players, but it's almost like your style has to fit into the line that you're playing on or the pair that you have. And it just seems like whether he goes to Carolina and plays with those guys in Pittsburgh, whether he can play with Crosby or Malkin or here, I mean, he's just like a sponge. He's a chameleon, and he's just a guy that just continues to score. And again, I still think it's hilarious that he scored a hat trick last night. And it was like, yeah, but you were the second star of the game because this guy had a goal and 5 assists. To see Nikita Kucherov,
Yes.
I mean, just to watch Kuch do what he did last night, he really is a magician on the ice because he doesn't go see other people in hockey, and you'll get this. And the 2 best players I think a lot of people think in the league are McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon. But when they're great because they get the engines pumping and they just start flying everywhere, right? Cale Makar is the same way on defense.
Right.
But Cooch is the opposite. Cooch slows everything down. And on the one goal, I think it was the Gensel hat trick goal, Cooch makes a move inside, outside, and he's just like lulling you to sleep and then passes it to Gensel. There's an assist. I mean, he's like a spin doctor or like he's like a hypnotist. Just it's amazing because I don't think anybody in the NHL does exactly what Nikita Kucherov does. You may see other guys do well with speed, right? Maybe nobody's as fast as Connor McDavid, big, fast, and strong. But there's other guys in the league, Kaprizov, guys that are really, really fast. I don't know if anybody slows it down to a pace that Nikita Kucherov does and is still one of the top 5 players in the game.
Jay, that's a really good point because, right, you think of Nikita Kucherov and I watch him every night and I like, how does he do it? But yes, that is his style. I don't know how he does it and it just never fails. I don't like it, and I honestly, Jay, I think we've all heard about his work ethic and the season ends and he takes 24 hours and he's back on the ice. But I really, if I had to try to explain it, like it's got to be just like those fundamentals. Like he does all of the little things so well that he has this vision. It seems like he's working 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and he can just make it look effortless.
Yeah, you're right. And remember when we were at prospect camp, not last year, but the year before, we were there, and I think it was just the three of us because Chris Krem was still the beat writer at the time, and then Ed Encina. So I think it was like the 3 and 4 of us. And all of a sudden, it's like all these prospects, and then Nikita Kucherov's gear is in his locker, and we're like, "What the heck is going on here?" Like, and there's Pointer comes in, he's like, "Yeah, Kuch got me out here." Like, he's just on a completely different wavelength than everybody else. All right, I got to get you out here because I have other people coming on the show today. You and I can do this for 2 hours. The one and only Gabby Shirley. Check her out on all social media platforms, and check her out, of course, tomorrow night, FanDuel, as the Lightning take on the Seattle Kraken. I love you. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll talk soon.
Love you too, Jay. Thank you.
You got it. The one and only Gabby Shirley. How great is she to see her rise through the ranks, man? It is such a cool thing to see. Again, follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here. I'm rocking the UT Fitted today, the 9-time national champions. I wanted to talk a little baseball here when it comes to our Tampa Bay Rays before we get to Bailey Adams, our friend at Pewter Report, breaking down Buccaneers and Chargers. I was having this conversation the other day with my girlfriend about the Tampa Bay Rays and the players. I asked her to name some of the players on the team, and some of the players that she named. And listen, if you've been following me and you know anything about me, Steph was not into sports at all, right? But as we've been dating for almost 3 years now, she's really done such a great job of ingratiating herself into the Tampa Bay sports teams. And man, the effort that she's put in, it's really cool. And I'm very grateful to have somebody to care that much to just open up a different side of themselves, to be able to look into what their partner is so passionate about and to really enjoy it. And I'm not saying this to knock her at all. I just think this is just, it gives you a peek into the reality of the situation when it comes to our Tampa Bay Rays. And I just said, let's name off, we're talking about the Rays. And I was just like, name some of the players. And she was talking about the people. I just said, name the people that come to your mind, right? Even though she knows some of them are not on the team anymore. But the ones that she named were Randy Rosarena, Jose Siri, Wander Franco, Isaac Paredes, then Yandy Diaz. So she named 4 guys on the team before she could name 4 guys that were on the team before she got to one guy that is still on the team. And there are people out there that think Yandy could be moved in the offseason. But we're just having the conversation about the team. And you know, so much of the talk about the Tampa Bay Rays, unfortunately, in the last couple months has been about the Rays Stadium. They did sign Danny Jansen to be their catcher on a 1-year deal over $8 million. But I look at a place like Tampa, and I look at, and we're going to have Paul Russo going to join us at 1:40, talking more about the local team. And I look at certain things that are done in our area and why people spend the time they do supporting whatever it is, right? Whether it's in sports or out of sports. And I look at this team right here with the University of Tampa, and I look at the things that they do to show love, not just to the people that go support them, but their alumni. UT bought a ring for the great Tony Saladino. They won their 9th national championship, and during the ring ceremony last Friday night at UT, Coach Joe Urso and Coach Sam Militello was actually the one that presented to him. But 88 years old is the one and only Tony Saladino that has been running the best high school baseball tournament for decades here in the Tampa Bay area. And if you were anybody who's anybody that played in the major leagues from the city of Tampa, Tino Martinez, McGriff, Gonzalez, Tucker, Jose Fernandez, rest in peace, and everybody in between, you played in the Saladino tournament. And his grandson, Nico, was the starting shortstop for the Spartans. And during the ring ceremony, as Joe is talking about it, Sammy Militello walks over to Tony at 88 years young and hands him a ring. And everybody gave him a standing ovation. And it just spoke volumes to why UT has been so successful. Why teams like the Lightning, we just spoke about it with Gabby Shirley, are so successful. It's not always about the almighty dollar. It's not always about how much money you spend. It's about doing those type of things that supersede the finances. It's about how you treat people. It's about understanding that it's got to be more than a business. There's got to be some kind of personal interaction that has to have long-standing benefits. It can't just be, well, they're here now, but they're gone tomorrow. You can't build a fan base that way. You can't build overriding success that way because it's fleeting. You want to be able to feel like you know who's going to be in the lineup for the Rays, not just this year, but next year. If you're going to spend $100, $200 on a jersey, you want to make sure that that guy's going to be on the team in 2025, 2026, 2027. I understand that the way that the Rays have done their business is because of a multitude of reasons, right? But that is a reason why there is a issue when it comes to the disconnect between the Rays and our community. I want them to do well. I want them to flourish. But I've asked this to Stu Sternberg himself before, and I said, do you feel like there's a disconnect between your fan base and the organization? He says no, and I think that's very short-sighted. I don't think that's true. Because you can't tell me when you have this many big leaguers coming out of this area, when you see tens of thousands of kids playing across the state, that there's still a disconnect. It's not just the attendance. I'm not just talking about that. Is that part of it? 100%. But I'm just talking about the apathy when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays. You're just like, nah, take it or leave it. Some people don't even care, like if the Rays leave after this season. They don't. And some people are going to say, oh, yeah, well, they're not hardcore fans anyway. Listen, the way that you grow a fan base is by taking those casual fans and flipping them and convincing them that they are worth your time, they're worth your energy, and they're worth your money. Never give a person a reason to get off the highway. If that's what your job as a proprietor, if that's what your job as an owner, I don't know if the Rays have done a great job with that. Because there's a lot of people that are very flippant about it. And I don't think that all of those people are, I know some people are going to say, those are the worst type of fans. Those are the worst type of people. I don't think so. I certainly don't think my girlfriend's like that. But she could kind of take it or leave it when it comes to the Rays, I feel. Because we have a bunch of shirts from players that aren't there anymore. Right? When you trade fan favorites like Randy Arozarena in the middle of the season, and instead of going right to Seattle, they're watching the next game from the stands. Like, those are the guys you want to hold on to. Those are the kind of people that are going to create new fans. All the fans, let's say you created new fans for the Tampa Bay Rays in the last year with Randy Arozarena. And people are like, I want to go to Randy Land. He threw my kid a ball. Like, those are memories that people will have for the rest of their life. This ball right here is from Randy Arozarena. That's something that the girls in this house will never forget. Unfortunately, it stops there. Because they traded him. And I understand it's a business, but I'm always a firm believer that if you don't use some type of personality and you don't use that human interaction and you don't realize that it's also a people business, then you're going to have you're just like riding the line here. You're riding the line. And if it wasn't for the development, which has come out of necessity, and if it wasn't for fantastic coaching, like, what would we have with the Tampa Bay Rays? Not much. So I just really hope that what we see in the future is we see more. And I hope that this stadium saga really kind of flips everything on its head. And the stadium is built in St. Pete, and there's a lot of great things around it. And that'll implore more people to go and support this team. But I really think that the Rays really need to look in the mirror, whether that's Stu Sternberg or whether that's going down the line, and realize that you got to do a better job of building that fan base. There are teams that have been around for less time across all four major sports that have a more passionate fan base than the Rays. I still think it's crazy for a guy that grew up playing hockey and baseball, that I moved to the Southeast. I moved to the city of Tampa, where there's so many players that have played D1 baseball and pro baseball. But there is a way more passionate fan base for the hockey team here than there is for the baseball team. And I don't blame the fans. I don't. The franchise has to look upon themselves and realize, what can we do better moving forward? Because it sucks that this is part of the conversation. And it's not like there isn't an example, because you have a fellow professional sports team in the Lightning that have done that. And you have a baseball team in UT, Division II baseball, that have hundreds of people that can travel to Cary, North Carolina for your World Series. And all of these people, almost 300 people at a ring ceremony last Friday night. The examples are there. I just really hope that the Tampa Bay Rays follow that game plan, because it can work here, but there's got to be kind of a changing of the mindset moving forward. All right, let's talk some football. We're going to do it with our guy Bailey Adams from Pewter Report. We're going to talk some UCF too, buddy. I didn't mention that yesterday, but we're definitely going to get to it. Appreciate you taking some time to chat with us today. Bucs and Chargers this Sunday at 4:25. I said earlier today, Bailey, I think this is one of those prove-it type games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can you're supposed to beat these teams, and I think good teams do that too, right? You got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. But games like this on Sunday with a good head coach, with a team that focuses on playing the game the right way, don't turn the football over, will run the football, the Buccaneers go win this game. I really do think they plant that flag in the ground going, we're a team to be reckoned with, not just in the division, but the conference as a whole.
Yeah, I completely agree. And first of all, thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I think, like you said, this is one where, right now they lead the Falcons in the division. There's 4 games left. All they have to do to win the division, get that home playoff game, is finish with the same record over these final 4 games as Atlanta. But if you do that at 3-1 with a loss to the Chargers and you beat all these other teams, as a team, you might still go into the playoffs thinking like, all right, we'll see what we can do. But I think your fan base is probably like, we're going one and done. And I think that a win like this on the road against another playoff team could galvanize the fan base and maybe get the team feeling like, all right, we can go finish out the rest of this season, win the next 3 games, go into the playoffs on a 6 or 7 game win streak, and feel like they can do some damage. And this is a time to prove it.
What do you think about the running back situation? I know Bucky Irving's not 100%. I don't think he's going to practice much at all for the rest of the year because he's dealing with a multitude of injuries. But what do you think? We know how it has gone in the past, but what do you think the next couple of weeks is going to look like when it comes to how Liam Cohen deploys Bucky, Rashad, and Sean Tucker?
I'm curious about it too. I think a lot of it just hinges on how Bucky's feeling on a given Sunday or on a given day. Like Todd Bowles said earlier this week, we'll just have to see if his back loosens up, and that's a big if. But at least they've proven that they've got a guy in Rachaad White who I think quietly is having a very, very good year. I think a lot of the attention has gone to Bucky Irving, and rightfully so. But I think Rashad is doing a lot of things very well and has proven in the past that he can carry that room. And Sean Tucker, when called upon, has done his thing really well. And the pony package that they were employing a lot with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, Liam Cohen has proven that he will use that. He'll put that to use. And our guy Josh Capo at pewterreport.com has kind of been documenting that week by week and diving into how they set up these big runs that they've had and how you set up a run like Sean Tucker had late in that game against the Raiders last week. And even stuff like, how they've set up some of the runs that Baker Mayfield has been able to get on. So,
yeah.
I think with this run game and especially with the way, the passing game, relying on Mike Evans, Kate Otten, and Baker's made some mistakes here and there, but the run game has saved them. And who would have thought we'd be saying that, I think, after the last couple of years. But I think they'll keep being creative about it and keep being effective in the run game.
Yeah, it's so wild, right? For the team that was dead last the last couple of seasons under Byron Leftwich and then Dave Canales. I mean, don't tell me that coaching has nothing to do with it. Liam Cohen comes in here and the pre-snap motion and the way that all these guys are moving. And that's why I really like the Chargers. I really do. And they do some of the same things in the running game. Greg Roman is similar mindset where he'll take some of his guards and swing them out to the outside, and they're just waylaying dudes on the run defense. But I'm with you, man. I look at this team and I look at the job done by the run game as a huge reason why the Buccaneers are where they're at in that situation right now. But I think a lot of this game, because you're probably not going to get free possessions in this game, talk about the number 1 turnover margin team in the game in the Chargers, this has to be a Baker Mayfield intelligent game. I really feel like he can't get into a position where he thinks it's a shootout. We saw it last week with the Chargers and the Chiefs. Like they were just kind of nitpicking at each other. We'll take field goals. I mean, you do want to score 28 points because I think, between 25 and 28 probably is, I don't want to say a sure win, but you want to talk about getting your percentages up. I think that
Mhm.
helps the Buccaneers. I don't think that they've scored, if I'm not mistaken, the Chargers haven't scored more than 23 points in their losses. So I don't know if they're a shootout team. They're trying to take care of the football, but Baker's got to do a better job than we've seen in the last couple of weeks. He gets a little bit too much of a gunslinger mentality, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, and I think he's self-aware in that way. I mean, he called himself the worst player on the offense last week,
Right.
and he's hard on himself. But I think there are things that that we've seen with Baker that maybe we haven't seen with other quarterbacks, and something Scott Reynolds wrote about today. He has an ability to snap back into it, and other quarterbacks in the past in this franchise have not been. They've kind of seen their days snowball. But Baker, even a game like last week where things are falling apart in the second quarter, he still comes through in that fourth quarter, makes the throws he needs to make, hits that late touchdown pass. So, yeah, he just from the jump and then consistently throughout the game needs to protect the ball because it can get out of hand, especially when you're playing a team this good and a defense that thrives off of that kind of stuff. And they're going to want to wear the Bucs down. But, yeah, if he can play a clean game, I think this offense does score somewhere between 20, 27 points and gives themselves a good shot to win.
PewterReport.com, some great stuff up there. Bailey, Josh Capo, Matt Matera, Scott Reynolds, the whole crew over there. You guys do such a great job. Defensively, Scott was on the program with me talking about some of the coaching and the need for those guys to be able to step their game up because once again, I mean, you're not getting much from I don't know how much you're scheming the interior pass rush. To me, it's just Kalijah and Vita Vea just being absolute beasts and, winning your one-on-one battles, right? CJ Brewer's had some sacks. Logan Hall's had some sack. I don't know if Anthony Nelson's necessarily being coached up. I just think he's got the heart of a lion, right? And he's one of those rotational guys that you're going to need in that 3-4-5 outside linebacker role to be able to give you some snaps. But the lack of development in Chris Braswell this year, the lack of development for Joe Tryon-Shrink and Yaya Diaby, to me, is a concern. Do you see those guys breaking out of it? I mean, which one of those guys, if any of them, can really get to the quarterback? Because I hear all the stuff about the numbers are better. I'm looking at sacks because you got to get to the quarterback and you got to get him on the ground, especially forcing second and long and third and long. So what do you make of the pass rush, and do you think it's going to improve?
I think it's been a big point of frustration this year. I think just especially from the outside guys, because I mean, I think like you said, the numbers, and I do to an extent see that argument for it, where the numbers for Yaya Diaby, like his pressure rate is pretty good. His total pressures are good. He only has 2 sacks though. And that's a big drop off from last year where he stepped into a starting role late and then finished with 7.5. He went on a run. So
people
you'd like
thought
to
he was
see him
going to have 10 or 15 this year.
Right.
They're like, this guy could be, a Pro Bowler this year. And we just haven't seen it.
Yeah. And you'd like to think that maybe over these last 4 games, he can go on that kind of run. Not that he's going to get to 7.5 or 10 in the next 4 games, but something where, he's getting to the quarterback more regularly because just with the pressure they're getting on the interior and with the blitz schemes that Todd Bowles likes to dial up anyway. Levante David had a sack last week. There's a little bit less of it without Antoine Winfield Jr. out there from the safety position, but anything from the outside linebackers at this point would be a pretty big help for this defense, and they're just not getting enough, much less anything really. But I think Yaya is that guy who has the most potential to kind of snap out of it down the stretch here.
What do you think about the interior linebacker position? Obviously we've seen what's gone on with KJ Britt, whether it's his lack of strong play or dealing, being banged up. We've got Jones, we've seen Russell. I mean, I thought that was one area, and I know football is not like other sports where you're trading for a bunch of guys at the deadline, but I was hoping that there was somehow, some way. I was screaming the name Robert Spillane from the Raiders, like, please go get him. He's a tackling machine. And again, I think he's top 10 in tackles again. But is that an area that concerns you against a team like the Chargers that are going to run the football, short passing game with Greg Roman? I mean, is that the place, do you think, that they're going to target, especially because it's been a weak spot all year long?
Yeah, I think it's an area that concerns me against the Chargers and against every other team the Bucs play because it really is. You go into every week thinking like, how are they going to be able to cover that part of the field? And KJ Britt, like Todd Bowles just, I guess, a few minutes ago, KJ Britt's out this week, so he's ruled out. So we'll see Vi Jones. We'll see if JJ Russell gets back. I'm curious, and I don't know if they'll get him elevated this quickly, but signing Deion Jones to the practice squad, what he has, left, and if he can offer anything here in the last 4 weeks, like again, and that's another position where like anything could be an improvement over what they've been getting. So I'm curious about him. I don't know if he's, he hasn't been that same guy that he was. I think it was his rookie year, however many years ago that was. But just getting, a fresh guy in there because what they've been running out there hasn't really worked so far.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they can hold up there. And then the safety position, with Antoine Winfield Jr. Being banged up, I like that you see Christian Izien is a guy to me that's just, he gets better as games go on. He's the guy that's just like, if he makes a mistake, he bounces back. And you saw Tyke Smith coming up with that big pick. I think that's an opportunity for another. I mean, it sucks because you want Antoine Winfield Jr. to be out there, but I think that's another position where you look at like, all right, we need guys to elevate their game. The safety spot seems to be that's over the years, right? I mean, we saw it with Mike Edwards. We saw it years. Who was the guy that had 3 picks in one game?
Was that Keith Tandy?
No, not Keith Tandy. Later. Who was
Andrew Adams.
Andrew Adams, yes, because he was with the Giants. Yeah. For some reason, we've seen Kayvon, right? Like you see that safety position, those guys step up and come out of nowhere and have some big games. They're going to need that as well against the Chargers.
Yeah, and that's what it leaves me a little concerned. I guess Christian Izien's listed as questionable right now, but he's a guy that they're going to need out there, and just his versatility is huge for what Todd Bowles likes to do, and Tyke Smith has some versatility to him as well. But yeah, there always seems to be something to that position. I don't know. We might see Ryan Neal elevated from the practice squad, and I know that probably has a lot of people out there shuddering, but. That might be one of the guys where that position hasn't flourished for the Bucs and Todd Bowles' defense. But I think they're just going to have to piece it together, and they're going to have to. This is a Chargers offense, and especially Justin Herbert. He's thrown 1 interception all year. So if they can get a turnover or 2 turnovers, that would be huge because this is a offense that doesn't give away the ball. And I don't know where it's going to come from, but it's got to come from somewhere if they're going to be able to pick this one up.
Yeah, I wonder if Ryan Neal, because we saw it last year when he had some success, it was actually playing kind of like a linebacker position.
Yeah.
So maybe you see him there, maybe playing next to Levante, maybe that'll help, and maybe palate cleanse some of the bad play from last year that people can't stand when they just shudder when they hear his name, like you said. Yeah. Mike Evans right now is at 590 yards. He needs 410 over 4 games to reach 1,000 yards once again. Do you think he gets there? He has a propensity to come up big on these West Coast games. I remember the game years ago. I think it was against the Rams on the road. I think he had a huge game against Marcus Peters, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think he gets there? Because I feel like if it's going to happen, he's got to have a big week this week, right? Yeah. Because I want him to get it so bad. It's weird because you don't have Chris Godwin, so they can really slide all their protection or slide all their coverage towards him. It's going to be tough, man, but I hope he does it starting on Sunday.
Yeah, I want it for him, and I mean, I'm sure he deep down wants it, but he's always been let's just win the game kind of guy. But I think it's going to take, and I've been writing about this, kind of tracking it week by week. I think it's going to take some kind of consistent run where he's getting 100, obviously, and that's just the math of it. But what it might actually take is a game where he goes out there for 205 yards, something like that.
Yep.
Which it's tough in this offense because they don't push the ball down the field that much. And I think that combined with the injury is part of the reason why, he's at 590 right now and not 780, 800. I don't know. I never want to bet against him, though. So I still, until further notice, kind of wanted to say, yeah, I think he'll still find a way to get there somehow. But it is going to take he's going to need to put a dent into it on Sunday.
They got to connect on some of those long shots because they don't take many of them. So if they do, if it's something down the sideline, kind of like on the play that he got hurt, right? They're going to have to connect on 1 or 2 of those over the next couple of weeks for this to happen. Before I get you out of here, I definitely want to talk some UCF. Okay. You see the scarf there behind you, #ChargeOn. You're going to the well once again, bringing Scott Frost back. Of course, he was the head man there when they reached heights that they've never reached before, nor have they reached since then. But you bring a guy back in, Scott Frost. It didn't work at his alma mater at Nebraska. I think a lot of people like Scott Frost, and they kind of felt bad that, you go to Nebraska. It just seemed like a good story for him. They were down, and he lost so many 1-score games. It just did not work out. What is your confidence level that he is going to be able to replicate the success that he had the first time around?
I'm like in two minds about it, because when the possibility was first floated out there, I'm thinking, all right, the last time we saw him as a head coach was at Nebraska 2 years ago, and he got fired. Things weren't going so well. You normally, before he comes back to a head coaching position, you want to see him kind of work back being an analyst, being an assistant, or being an offensive coordinator somewhere. And he did this year, spent part of the season with the Rams out as a consultant or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But jumping right back into being a head coach kind of gave me pause, especially with the NIL, with the roster management, with all of that stuff going on. But at the same time, it's just the vibes. Like I think it's like the least analytical way to look at it is like he came back a week ago and the vibes have completely been lifted for the entire fan base. I think the donors are going to be kind of all in on this. I don't know. I mean, replicating what they did in 2017 is. I don't even think that can be the goal, because that was such a special season. I think it's just they've got to build back up to kind of even a respectability, because I think the program has fallen from where it was even a few years ago. And, they're in the Big 12 now, and it's going to take a lot to start being a little more consistent in that conference. But with his style, with the way he connects with his players, and with how much everybody around the program wants this to work, I think he's got a shot to make this work.
And especially when you bring across the offensive coordinator that everybody loves too, right? Bring the Milton.
Yeah, bringing him.
That's a good start.
Bringing him back as the QB's coach is another like the nostalgia hit immediately, and you see pictures of them two together, and everybody's all the way back in. But I think the big thing for me is like it's going to be a process. They're not going to jump from where they are right now to big time contending, but. I'm rooting for him, and I hope it works out.
Okay, I thought it was offensive coordinator. So yeah, you're right, quarterback's coach. Yeah, but still getting him in the fold there, a guy that's, you harkening back to some great memories from the program. Were you surprised with happened with Gus Malzahn at all? Maybe not the fact that he left, but the fact that he didn't just like retire, get fired. He just went to Florida State, and now he's the OC there at Norvell.
Yeah, it was funny because it got to a point with the fan base, and I will say I was one of them too, where I was ready for him to go. I knew UCF probably didn't have the money to buy him out and fire him, so I wasn't sure he was going to leave. The best hope for us at that point was maybe he's going to hang it up and retire, and come to an agreement on how much money he's going to get paid. But for him to line up another job that quickly and jump to Florida State, that's the part that surprised me. And I was thinking, all right, well, UCF's kind of getting off scot-free here without having to pay him $13 million or whatever the buyout is. And then I don't know, now he's Florida State's problem. Like there's stuff that he does well. I'm upset that it didn't work out for him, because I do like him, but I think it was going downhill fast, and kind of getting a fresh, clean slate for Frost here is probably what was best for the fan base, because it was getting pretty toxic.
I think there needs to be a collaboration, and I'm getting this from what's behind your head at the top. It says UCF Avenue up there. I, being a diehard wrestling fan, thought it said Oos Avenue. Okay. So if there needs to be a Jey Uso UCF collaboration where it's like Oos and the bottom line is like in the tribal with him, come on, man.
I don't think I would have never thought of that, but again, my head is covering it up. It does look like that, and I love that idea. I'm a Jey Uso guy, so yeah, I like that.
It's amazing, man. And then before I get you out of here, just UCF. Is there any part of you as a UCF fan that misses playing USF on Black Friday? And I always think it's such a unique rivalry because obviously you're going to be connected forever, right? Mm-hmm. But UCF's looking at it like, I understand UCF's in the Big 12, but rivalries in college football are unlike any other sport. And it was weird. It was weird not, the day after Christmas or the 2 days after, day after Thanksgiving or 2 days after Thanksgiving, not seeing UCF and USF play each other. Was it funky to you too? I understand they're on the greener pastures in the Big 12, but like I said, rivalries are good for college football. And I think ideally it would be good if both of those teams were in bigger conferences, top 25 teams, because I think that can really propel somebody forward.
Yeah, and it's a big point of contention among UCF fans, because there are the ones who are like, no, we left them behind, pull up the ladder. We don't want them, we don't want them around anymore. I think there is a big part of the fan base, though, that does kind of miss that head-to-head of the toxicity of a rivalry. And it was that way sometimes. And it was like last year, UCF ended up playing on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and they played Houston. And there was little to no juice for that game. It was just UCF needed to win the game to get a bowl game. They did it. It was whatever. This year, it was supposed to be, a big game on Black Friday, Fox, 8 o'clock, UCF and Utah. Both teams came into that game with like 4 or 5 wins.
Yes.
So it didn't, so far, like I this past offseason when they announced that Utah game, I was like, okay, that's a big game for Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll take that over the rivalry. But you get to the point where you're like, I don't know, I do kind of miss it, even though I think it's, I don't know. There is not the schedules aren't open, I guess, for USF for a while, but I do hope at some point they kind of get that back on the schedule.
Yeah, because I think in college football more than any other sport, because you have bowl games, you have a lot of teams that finish the season on a high note. You don't get that in pretty much in any other sport. So you can have a mediocre season, you could be 500, but you win a bowl game and you're like, hey, we're moving on to next year. We're riding this wave. But I also think in situations like this where UCF, maybe you have a little bit of a down year, you beat USF or vice versa, right? You're like, hey, man, that makes you feel a little bit good going into the offseason. All right, Bailey J. Adams, 22 on Twitter. Check out all of our friends at Pewter Report, pewterreport.com. Bailey, I appreciate your time. My friend, we'll do this again soon. And, go Bucs. Go. I won't say go USF or go UCF. I don't want to disrespect me or you or our listeners. Yeah. But I appreciate you, my brother. Be well.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And I love what you're doing. And Tampa Bay sports media landscape is better with you in it. So love the show and appreciate you.
Thanks, pal. Talk soon.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, good stuff there, Bailey Adams. We're going to keep it local like we always do. We're going to go out to the ball field. The one and only Paul Russo, Hit Factory, my man, one of the local legends here in the Bay Area. Where you at, brother? You at TC? Where you at?
Yeah, just got done golfing with Coach Tom and now at TC.
Zig-zang, brother. Coach Tom. Has Coach Tom Garvey ever had a bad day?
If he has, nobody's ever seen it.
Oh, my gosh. And if anybody out there is listening and watching for the first time, our guy, Coach Tom, I'm sure you've seen the videos. He's got the hats on. He's got the cigar. Saturday morning, he puts them out. He's doing a dance. He's got a song, usually from the 90s. I mean, he is one of one. There is nobody like our guy, Coach Tom.
Motivation Saturdays. Everybody looks forward to it.
You got to go check that out, our guy, Coach Tom Garvey. We're going to talk some local stuff here. I'm rocking the UT hat here. Obviously, you have, your history there. And just to be able to see it, I was bringing this up and I want to get your opinion. The Rays and comparing them to UT. When people say baseball can't work in the Bay Area, Paul, you and I know tens of thousands of kids in the state play baseball. And it's extremely frustrating to me that there seems to be a disconnect between the Rays and our community, right? And you look at a Division II baseball team, hundreds of people go out to support them at a college level. I mean, do you see that too? Is that just something that you're a Tampa lifer through and through. Is that just something that I'm seeing? Like, what do you see as a guy that's grown up and around the baseball field your entire life?
Jay, if we've always talked about if the stadium was in Tampa or it being in St. Pete, is that the big holdback why people don't go to the games? I've always believed that if the stadium was in Tampa, that more people would go to the games. Just not for the reason that the stadium's where it's at. It's because the drive home is the big thing. I always thought, and I've always and will believe that if the stadium's in Tampa, it's going to be a bigger draw. There are hundreds of thousands of kids that play baseball in Tampa, hundreds of thousands of kids that love the Rays. And I can't understand why people don't go other than it's a haul after a 7:00 game at night.
Yeah. I wonder if the relationship was stronger though, right? Because I grew up in New York, man. People would drive 4 hours both ways on a school night because it was like that was the ticket. People aren't complaining in St. Pete about having to go to Lightning games. And I know it's not the same amount of games, but I just feel like if the bond was stronger, right? Absolutely. And I've had this conversation with one of your former high school teammates and a good friend of ours, one of the Lanjotti brothers. Yep. And we were just talking about the rich tradition of baseball in the Tampa Bay area, and how it doesn't seem. Do you think it's translated to the Rays? Because I look at all these guys that play pro ball, and it doesn't seem like it is transitioned over.
Well, I think, Jay, they've even had Tampa guys play on the team. You're talking Fred McGriff, you're talking Tino, you're talking Wade Boggs, and it just hasn't translated over for whatever reason. I think when you're talking about, when you're being a kid going 4 hours to a game, you're talking about the New York Yankees. That's a big difference. I could tell you, I know the Rays are involved in the community. They give money to Little League parks. They give money to programs to help sustain Little Leagues and help build them back up. I know Belmont Heights has been one traditionally. West Tampa Little League has been a traditional benefactor from the Rays. I know they give out uniforms to ballparks. So I don't think the community relations is bad. I just think that they have a problem getting people in the stands on a daily basis. Now, when it's playoff time, if they're in the playoffs, the place is pretty packed. Everyday basis, I don't think you're going to have those people going to baseball games like they would if it was in Tampa. That's just my personal opinion.
Right. What? How did you're at Tampa Catholic right now? I know that you guys got affected by the storms. Just take us through, how some of the damage there at TC, and if you guys are going to be ready for the season, because it'll be here before you know it.
From the first hurricane, it wiped out the batting cages, all the equipment in the locker room. The water rose 3.5 feet high, past the dugout, into the field. When Paulie and I walked up, when we could get on campus, the batting cages looked like a fishing boat net with all the debris from the river in it. The water level had reached above the water fountain in the cages, in the dugout, and all the pitching machines, all the baseballs, all the field equipment ruined. And then the second storm flooded the coach's office. So they had to black mold everywhere. They had to tear down the coach's office. And in fact, 5 minutes before I got on with you, Jay, we toured it, and it's unbelievable. It is. Wow. It is gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
So you guys going to be ready for the opening?
They just put up the fence again yesterday. They finished putting up the fence, so we should be ready for opening day for sure.
Oh, well, that's fantastic news, man. That is so good.
The Tampa Catholic community, Principal Lees, really did an outstanding job turning it from a tragedy to something beautiful. He truly did. He did a wonderful job.
That's a great thing. It wouldn't be the same if you guys weren't playing this year. And you have Jesuit on the schedule this year?
I'm sure we do. I don't get involved a whole lot with it. Paulie does it all, and but it's always a great couple of games to go play Miguel and the guys at Jesuit. It's a great rivalry, and it's great camaraderie between the coaches, and it's a good time, regardless of win, lose, whatever.
It's the best rivalry in high school sports, in my opinion. High school baseball, definitely. Some big news that came out earlier today. After this year, Coach Jim Macaluso is he's hanging him up. His 50th year as King Lions head coach. He's retiring at the end of the 2025 season. Paul, I got a great picture of myself with Jim Macaluso, Pop Cuesta, and the late great Frank Permua years ago at the Saladino tournament. And all everybody kept saying is the one guy you're missing is the guy you never met, and the great Coach Billy Reed. What does it say about Tampa baseball where a guy like Jim Macaluso can be coaching there 50 years? He's obviously sent guys to the pros. Just talk about what he's done at King and just kind of high school baseball in general in our area.
Well, sustainability is, he's been coaching there almost as long as I've been alive, Jay. It's, he's been there 50 years. He's been a mainstay. And, another legend last year retired, Coach Crumley, and now Coach Mack. So, when Coach Permui passed away, and then Pop retired, then Crum, now Coach Mack, it's, the legends when I was growing up as a kid have all retired, and it's sad, but we were at the dinner the other day for the Italian national team. He looks fantastic. He looks like he could coach another 50 years, and I could tell you he's had great baseball players there. Ty Griffin, Derek Bell, Derek Pedro, guys that I played against in high school that, are legends in high school baseball here. And he, and I told Coach Mack this story years ago when I was a kid, and we went to play at King, and he had the Italian flag flying in the outfield. And I go, Coach Mack, my dad and I still talk about that to this day, that, it was just a special time and place to go play there and play against him. He's been a great coach and a great mentor for 50 years.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Italian club. We were there before UT ended up playing the Italian national team. We know the bonds with Mike Piazza, and I remember Joe Urso, head coach of UT, walks me into he's like, I have you sitting at this table. I don't know if you know anybody at the table. And it was you and Sammy and Coach Mack and Pop and Tony Saladino. I'm like, yeah, I think I know these guys.
You know everybody.
That was it. If I had my choice, that'd be the place that I would sit 100%. Out of all the guys that grew up in the Tampa Bay area, who was the best guy that you saw on the mound, and who was the best guy that you saw at the plate?
Well, of course, I'm always going to say Sammy, because he's been my best friend since we were kids. Mm-hmm. And without myself at the plate, Tino Martinez, because I'm always going to say me.
When did you know? Because obviously you played some pro ball, but those guys like Tino, and I'm not just talking about the guys that you grew up with, but like the next level, like looking at the late great Jose Fernandez and looking at guys like Kyle and Preston Tucker and guys like that. Yeah. At what point, or Pete Alonso, another guy that you know very well, and I name dropped you a couple of years ago when I met him the first time. I was like, yeah, Paulie's one of my best friends. He's like, oh, and he was just so nice to me. Not that he wasn't a nice guy before that, but that got me in there. But what is it that you see from those type of guys, whether you played with them or you coached with or against them, that you just knew like that kid has the potential to really do some great things?
Commitment to be great. Nothing more, nothing less. The commitment to be great. And regardless of what naysayers there were, they had a belief in themselves, and they were, all of those kids, they just had a commitment to be great. That you talk about the Tucker brothers, Pete Alonso, there's so many guys that have made it up the ladder here from Tampa. And I said this 25 years ago when I retired, Jay. I said the next 25 years will be a resurgence of baseball players, because now all the guys that played are helping, and they have a little higher knowledge of a professional aspect, and now they're going to go back to coach. Because listen, when I was in high school, when I transferred to Jefferson my senior year, Fred McGriff was my mentor. I would have never met Fred unless I transferred to Jefferson. And to the day I retired, he was a mentor to me with learning how to hit home runs, be a base hitter, all those kinds of things. And I think the kids nowadays have benefited from that. But their work ethic, Jay, was unsurpassed. And, I think that no matter what, talent is talent, but work ethic is what's going to get you to where you have to be or where you want to be.
So great to see Fred get finally inducted into the Hall of Fame. Such a long wait. Another guy that is from the Tampa area that I've been kind of banging down the walls to get in is Gary Sheffield. I just don't understand.
It's a travesty. It's a travesty that guy is not in the Hall of Fame. It's not only disrespectful to Chef. It's a travesty. The guy was one of the most tremendous, prestigious home run and RBI guys in Major League Baseball for 20 years, and the guy's not in the Hall of Fame.
Why do you think that is? Is it because of the name, sullied, or maybe, with the
listen, Jay, there's a lot of a-holes in the Hall of Fame. And I can tell you what, Gary Sheffield treated me like a brother our whole career. When he was in the big leagues with Milwaukee, and I think I've told you this story before, when he was in the big leagues with Milwaukee, Pat and I were in A-ball in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Every month I'd get a care package from Gary Sheffield for bats, batting gloves, shoes, whatever, every single month. He didn't have to do that. And, I was swinging big league wood in A-ball because of Gary. And that should tell everybody the kind of person he is. He gives back to people from here, to the community.
Yeah.
People, the media portrayed him a certain way, but that's just the way the media is. We all know the last 10 years, the media isn't always the greatest,
Right.
And, but I can tell you, Gary Sheffield, bona fide Hall of Famer with his eyes closed, without a doubt.
I'm with you, man. Before I get you out of here, you guys have some tryouts coming up for Hit Factory?
we have our Hit Factory, the last tryout for the older boys. We got a couple more spots to fill, and so that's our last tryout coming up. And then next week we'll have the younger kids, their tryouts. We'll have 2 or 3 of those up until the beginning or right after the new year, and then we're ready to go again.
HitFactoryTampa.com. What's different about you guys than everybody else? I mean, I know the answer. I mean, I got the hat right here behind me. But for those people wondering, because there are those, everybody's like, oh my gosh, travel ball. I don't want my kid anywhere near that. Obviously, they don't know that if they're not into it. But what's different about you guys compared to some of these other programs?
Well, it's totally saturated now. It's totally saturated. Everybody and their mother has an organization. But, we've been here 30 years, bro. We've been here 30 years. And we have a plan. We want every kid to progress at their level. We have teams that are developmental, and we have pro teams. So we coach the game from the ground up, and we try to make every kid reach their full potential. And there's always going to be parents that gripe. You know it.
Of course.
When we coach together, we saw it all the time. But, the funny thing to me is, we have kids that leave, want to come back after they leave, and I tell parents, I said, listen, you're a parent. You have to do what you think is best for your kid. But I'm telling you, it's not always greener on the other side. Let your son struggle if he has to, because it's going to teach him character. It's going to teach him development. It's going to teach him how to be a great teammate. And, Jay, our whole family is involved in it.
Right.
From my daughters to my son to my nephews, it's a family affair. Vince Scagno now, we got another head coach in the family with Chenzo at Steinbrenner. So our coaching staff, we got 7 pro guys that coach. Joe Martinez, Mike Figa, Scott Pitcher. I mean, myself, my brother, Paulie. We got pro guys everywhere there. And if the kids learn anything from us, it's how to prepare yourself, not to just be a major league player. That's because a lot of that's luck. You know that.
Yeah.
It's to prepare yourself every day to be ready to play baseball. And the goal is to win.
Yeah, you got that right, buddy. And now that my schedule's opened up a little more, I might have to go back.
Listen, that's not even a comment. You just, whenever you're ready, you just say, okay, I'm ready. And you're there.
Yeah, I think the summer that might be where we spend some time. I remember your brother Pat's asking me last year, like, "Well, you want to take a team in the fall?" I'm like, "The fall? What are you talking about? Hockey? You got football? What time? Come on, you got time on the weekend?" I'm like, "That's the time I have the least amount of time, Pat."
Exactly.
Oh man, but yes,
he's on a baseball field all the time, bro. So he don't even realize what's going on.
He's a maniac, man. That's why I love him, man.
He
and
is.
Excited to see Cole, your nephew, going to be playing for UT this year.
Listen.
How excited are you guys for that?
Super excited. He's going to wear 33, my number. And so now we got 33 on the baseball field, 33 on the softball field with Alexa in her last year. And we're super excited. Super excited.
Awesome. Paul Russo, the one and only. Check him out, hitfactorytampa.com, from the legendary Russo baseball family. I love you, brother. Give my love to everybody over there, your son, your better half, everybody, the girls,
I will.
everybody. I love you, buddy, and we'll talk soon.
I love you, and you do the same.
Thanks, pal.
All right, brother.
See ya.
Bye.
Just doesn't get better than our guy Paul Russo. You want to talk about Tampa legend, Tampa baseball? That's what we are. It's deep in our blood. I said this at the ring ceremony for University of Tampa. Baseball runs through it courses through the veins of us here in the Tampa Bay area. It's just that important. It really is. I mean, that's where so many of these friendships, and a lot of people have asked me over the years, like, don't you wish that you got into radio sooner? Do you wish you got into radio at the age of 18 instead of 28? And I say, no, not even close. And they go, why not? And I say, because I would have never met the amazing people that I met on the baseball field. I'm just making sure that I have Sara. Yeah, okay, good. I just sent the link to Sara Walsh. She's going to join us here momentarily. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, just think of all the people that I got a chance to meet, including the Russos. Like, these are like people that I there's a great picture right here. Coaching up in Cooperstown with my buddy Jay Evans and Lou Estevez, who both played ball here. Jay played for Chamberlain. Lou played for Jefferson. Their kids played for those same schools. I mean, it's pretty wild, right? I mean, baseball courses through the veins of the people here in the Tampa Bay area. It doesn't stop. There's not just like players, and it's not just kids. It's not just coaches. It's families, right? The Russo family, the Urso family, the Macaluso family, the Cuesta family, like the Evans, the Estevez family. Like, that's what's so great about baseball here in the Tampa Bay area. And that's why I have a hard time believing that there's such a struggle to really have the major league team not have like sink their teeth into the area. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's tough. And I hope it changes. I don't say this because I'm bitching and moaning and complaining, and I don't want to be part of the solution. Hell, if you've learned anything in the last couple of years, I definitely want to be part of the solution when it comes to this type of thing, because it goes deeper than just the stadium. It really does. And you heard Paul say it very eloquently there. The Rays don't really have a problem. It's not community relations, but there's got to be more ways to get the people, in the ballpark. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. Shout out to Big Dog, Steve Dumick. Always got the big dog here. Wherever I used to carry this with me, it was actually in my office back when I had an office before the move to the new building there. But the big dog's always here, and he's always watching. And Big Dog has always been a big fan of Sara Walsh, who's going to join us here momentarily. He was, if not her number one fan, definitely in the top 5. And I remember years ago, we were at the national championship at Raymond James Stadium before the matchup between Alabama and Clemson. And Sara was there, and I believe she was pregnant, she said the last time I talked to her. And she walked away after the interview, and you could just see the big dog, and he was just glowing. He was so happy and so proud of her to see how far she's come. And not everybody evoked that type of emotion from the big dog, Steve Dumick. He just wasn't like he wasn't the warm and fuzzy, cuddly guy. That wasn't his thing. But Steve loved Sara, man. He really did. And getting a chance to meet Sara over the last couple of years, and her parents and her husband, like, just really, really great people. And just to see her, it's an inspiration. We just had this conversation with Gabby Shirley a little while ago. Like, there are so many inspiring people in the sports world, and it's not just the athletes. It's the coaches, it's the front office, it's the media people, and it's not just men. There's women too. There's so many, women from the Tampa Bay area, right? There's just a lot of good things going on here. So for all the talk about, where you could go and all the places in the country you can live, like, just be proud. There's a lot of great things going on in the Tampa Bay area. Lady Evil, I miss James Donlin. What is he doing? James Donlin is continuing his stand-up career, so make sure you follow him on also all social media platforms as well. I'm trying to get James involved. I don't know if I'm stand by. Okay, Sarah's coming. But James is doing his thing, and hopefully in 2025, as I expand what I'm doing, maybe James Donlin will get involved too, because he was such a huge part of what we were able to do there towards the end of the Jay and Zach program. I really enjoyed what he brought to the table. He's just such a smart guy. He's funny. He's got such a great sense of humor. He's hardworking. So yeah, I don't think this is the last time that you're going to hear from James Donlin. I would implore all of you out there, everybody that follows me and everybody that supports me in all of my things and all of my endeavors, please support him as well, because he is a guy that certainly left an indelible impression on all of us when he was over there at iHeart with us. And I think that he is a guy that has a bright future in whatever he decides to do. I mean, just look at some of the things we were doing towards the end of our program. The barbecue, when we were roasting people, I thought that was some of the best radio that we did. Unfortunately, it wasn't for all that long, but that was the brainchild of James Donlin. That is a guy that is just, he's got something going on between, I'm not saying he's crazy, but he's got something going on between the ears that he is a very, very, he just thinks about things in a different way. He's looking at life. He's looking at sports, especially. And that was our goal of bringing him in. I don't know if we articulated that as much when we brought him in, because so many of the guys at DAE that, including myself, including Zach, like we were all sports guys, right? We were all hoping to move up the ladder and one day, be a host on some of these programs. But one thing, when we did have some kind of input on who our next producer was going to be, was we wanted somebody that didn't have as thorough of a sports background, because we wanted them to be able to look at things from a different perspective. And it happened because that was actually the second round of interviews. We didn't have James during the first round of interviews for our new executive producer. And we interviewed another gentleman, and he didn't have much of a background at all. But eventually we figured it out. And it was just, that's what you should do when you're looking at new endeavors in your life, when you're looking at making a change. Don't go with the same old. Take a step back, take a step to the side, analyze it in a way where you're like, I never thought about it like that before. And you'll often get an answer that you probably did not expect to find. All right, we're going to bring her in. I think she's ready. She's ready to roll. The one and only Sara Walsh joining us on the program. You're here. I appreciate it. Thank you. I know it's been a chore to get you on the program, but I appreciate you, my friend. You there? Oh, you muted? I'm unmuting you. Oh, you're muted. All right. All right, you're still muted. She's coming. There we go. Oh my gosh, please don't hate me after this.
Was this a really smooth way to come onto a show? I dropped the mic. I couldn't get on. I told you I would not be camera ready.
You are camera ready. Come on, man. You're rocking the hat with the ponytail. You look good. You look fantastic. I was just singing your praises before you got on, talking about our good friend, because I always keep this by my desk.
That makes me sad.
Yes, the great Steve Dumig.
About him, and every time I came on the radio with you guys and I'd start to talk about him, it makes me so sad.
Yeah, he was so proud of you, and it was just so funny because he was so ornery, and he didn't let anybody in the circle, and he wouldn't let anybody see him nothing at all. And then one day I was like, oh my God, he was just so proud of you. He was beaming, and I was like, you don't see that, and I love that. And you understand this, because when you do your job, you're not just talking about X's and O's. You talk about the people, and I think that's why you're so great at what you do, regardless of the sport you cover, is because you look at the way people do things and why they do things. And looking at Steve that day, I was like, wow, that's a different type of him. And the fact that your relationship was to the point where that it showed a different side of him, I looked at that like, wow, it was very enlightening to me.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what I ever did, why he was so nice to me, because I grew up in the area and my dad would listen to him every day. So I know what he was like on the radio, right? He's kind of scary. And I can't even remember the first time we met, but it might have been at a sneaker soiree in person. I might have come on the radio with him before, but he was always so nice to me. And then we would see each other at Super Bowls. And the on-air person was not at all how he treated me. Well, he treated me on air and off air. He was just, but I've heard that from several people, including his daughter. She was like, my dad just loves you, which obviously made me even more emotional. because I reached out to her at one point. And I was like, I just want to tell you how much I love your dad and miss him. And she's like, oh my God, he loved you. And so I don't know what I ever did. I wish whatever I did to Big Dog, I wish I could do to everyone, and everyone would feel that way about me, but they certainly don't.
Oh, come on. Everybody loves you. Are you kidding me?
No, he it was a special thing.
Well, don't sell yourself short, my friend, because you do such a fantastic job. And when you see the picture that really stood out to me is when you took that picture with all of the women from the World Cup in '98, and to see that, like, I don't, and I just had Gabby Shirley on a little while ago covering the Lightning, and you don't realize that. And I was just saying this, Tampa's got a lot of former professional athletes, coaches, media people, but especially the women in our area, what you're doing. And I see it because I have 2 little girls in this house. What you're doing in your profession and the way that you go about your business, you are inspiring young people, but especially the young females, more than you ever know. So please don't ever sell yourself short, and please always realize that, because I know you have a daughter of your own and she's adorable. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just spitting image of, I mean, those are your kids. I mean, it's funny, you and your husband, like, it's so funny to watch the little mini yous.
Well, I always say, I joke now. It's funny to me when people say that, because they were IVF, which is, I've never kept that a secret. So people are like, oh, they're definitely yours. I always would joke around and be like, I mean, I don't know if they're mine. Like, it's not the like traditional way you have kids. Like, do I know for sure they're mine? And everyone's like, no, they're like identical. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess they are. There was one point, this is real off topic if we're having a sports talk, but
It's okay.
The doctor I had, who I loved, who was really funny and had sort of the same sense of humor as me after I had the kids. There was some article about some clinic in Sweden or somewhere that they like messed up these eggs, and like people had kids that weren't their kids. And I sent him the article and I was like, hey, how do I know these are Matt's kids? And by the way, he's like busy, like making people's dreams come true.
Yeah.
Like he's like doing real things at work. And his like one line response to me was, you never specified you wanted Matt's children. I was like, that's my guy. Like, that was my guy. Like, so it just takes me back to when you're like, oh my God, they're spitting images. And I'm always like, are they? Like, do you think they are? Like, but I guess they pretty much are.
How are you guys holding up with the storm? I know you guys were hit pretty hard.
Yeah. I'm on Clearwater Beach. It's weird. I was at, so we were decimated, like my neighborhood, everyone, decimated. I think we're in one of the areas that was the worst in terms of like not livable, although I am living in my house, and that's because my house is built up. There's parts that are like have been uninhabitable for a while, but I was in Pittsburgh this past weekend. Like I can't even remember where I am, like 2 days ago, but I had multiple people there randomly be like, hey, I don't think you've like had a second to even like think about like the stuff. Because I have, as you know, and we've traded texts about me even being able to come on. It's been nonstop, because in the fall I do double duty and I'm working for 2 different networks and 2 different sports. And it's the craziest my year will ever be in the fall. And then I definitely have downtime. But I had multiple people in Pittsburgh that I think have just like watched stuff from afar. They're like, have you even like really like sat and thought about? And I'm like, no, I haven't. Like, and in some ways it's a really good thing. And I'm very fortunate because it's pretty depressing around here. And it was for a while, although I'll say it's getting a little bit better. Because there was just, if you had a house that was on the ground, like it's not, I don't say it's not there. It's not livable though. Like everyone's stuff is ripped out. And I know it's not just Clearwater Beach. This is all up and down the East Coast, a lot of different places in Florida, but our particular neighborhood, once you cross the bridge to Clearwater Beach, it was just total decimation. So there have been times, I will say, that's like a little bit eerie, that if I was walking the dog at night, like you're just alone, like there's no one here. There's very few people here. There's like one other person that lives on my street right now. It's that kind of wild. And there's definitely like moments of normalcy. And then there's definitely moments of, like I said, you go to walk the dog at night and it's just black out and no one's there. There's no lights on. There's no, that's weird. And for a while it's been depressing. It definitely doesn't feel like Christmas here. But it's slowly and surely going to get better.
You got that right. And our thoughts and prayers definitely go out to you and yours for sure. The video, the heroic, your husband video, like that went viral. Like that was pretty wild. And like you said, you and I, we've always, it's ironic, our friendship over the last couple of years through tragedy, I think we've spoken the most, right? When what happened with Steph and I, and then what happened with you in the storm. So to everybody watching and listening, I mean, that's the most important time to be there for your friends and your colleagues is when they're going through something, because you never know when a text or a call can really go a long way. And when we went through what we went through, the message that you sent me was definitely something that, when I showed Steph, she just lost it. Like, we were just like, how appreciative we were of you, and you do such a great job. All right, let's talk sports, because we're gonna sit here like a blubbering mess for the rest of the time.
What a Debbie Down. I'm so sorry. Like, I have I'm just like totally Debbie Downer over here. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's my own fault. I love tapping into the emotional side. Speaking of emotions, I know you're covering Eagles Steelers. What's up with the emotions with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts? This seems like straight out of like Friday Night Lights Part 2. Like, this is a funky situation going on with Brandon Graham. But listen, I said this years ago when Draymond Green came out with the podcast and all those things. You're going to have these things now where these players kind of control their own narratives on their own time, and it's going to seep into what's actually going on in the locker room. And you're going to have kind of like the Wild Wild West a little bit. What's that whole situation? How's that going to affect them going forward to the game this weekend against Pittsburgh?
I think it's like, calm down. What's interesting about the story that you're referencing, and this all literally stems from, they just went and beat the Carolina Panthers. It was not a dominant performance. Carolina had a chance to win that game. And after the game, AJ Brown was like, what could be better on offense? Or what do you guys need to do better on offense? And he just gave a one-word response and said, passing. Well, immediately that gets taken as like a shot at Jalen Hurts, who controls the passing. Could be a shot at the coach. Like, he gave a one-word answer. And then Brandon Graham, his teammate, does his own podcast or goes on someone's podcast and like made the comment that the relationship wasn't what it was, or something, the effect of dynamics have changed. Something's changed with them.
Right.
I'm not quoting him right, but it's something to that effect. And so then it turns into like a whole thing. But so what's interesting about it is that, that's a little bit like self-inflicted, like so then AJ and Jalen this week. And by the way, this is a team that's 11-2. So that's like what I have said multiple times on air. Like, we're acting like this is the Eagles that were in that like historic collapse last year. We're acting like this is the Cowboys in the season right there. They're 11-2. Like, they could have a 1 seed. Like, this is a team that's been like rolling. They've won 9 straight. So I think there's like got to be the perspective of that. And but this wasn't like the media started something, like their own player. And so I think they were kind of like all of them were like, they call him BG. They're like, BG like needs to like watch that. And they've sort of dialed it back. Where I do agree with AJ Brown, and this is smart, he goes, look, someone said, what does the offense need to do better? And he's like, it's not running the ball. Like he goes, Saquon's having an MVP. He's about to win the MVP for the season he's having. He might set the NFL rushing record. So realistically, like, running the ball isn't like what they need to do better. And he's like, what else do you do on offense? He's like, you pass it. And he's not wrong, right? Like, I don't know. So much got made of him being like passing. And then, his teammate didn't help him. But he's not wrong. Like, if you want to improve on something, and he's like, I'll be the bad guy if you want to, count me out as the bad guy in that scenario. But like, we need to be better at passing, and they haven't been lighting it up. Jalen Hurts is averaging like 200 yards a game. However, and he's not taking like the deep shots. However, he hasn't turned the ball over, right? So it's sort of like, first of all, it's Philly, right? So you're really probably never happy, right? They're always like mad about something.
Right.
That's just how Philly works. That's what they're known for. But I just keep going back to like, okay, let's just say like everyone's like falling apart in the locker room, which is not the case. Who wouldn't trade and be 11-2, right? Like maybe the Chiefs, right, with their record, but like everyone else would swap and be like, oh yeah, these guys, like, they didn't even get into it. But like whatever was said, I'm just like, they're 11-2. And like, if you're looking statistically at like where they could be better, yeah, it is passing. Like, he's not wrong. But I think, who was I talking to yesterday with them? Lennon Dickerson. And he's like, look, nobody wants to read Plain Jane headlines. Like, he's one of their line. He's like, nope, that's not selling. He goes, there's a reason people watch Housewives. Like, I'm one of those people. The Plain Jane stuff doesn't work. So they're grabbing onto anything. And maybe in Philly, like, they don't know how to be happy, right? Like, it's there's always got to be something, right? And I think some of it, though, you know, in the larger context is like, if you're going to make a deep postseason run, and if you're going to think that you're going to contend for the Super Bowl, you probably are not going to be able to be as one-dimensional on that side of things.
Right.
But I think when a guy is rushing the way that Saquon's rushing for, like, you play to your strength, and he is their strength right now. So it's a long way of saying it's much ado about nothing, but it like really blew up, and it was just interesting because these guys had to answer to it because their teammates sort of fanned the flames on that one.
Yeah, you got that right. I know with covering all the different teams and doing the soccer stuff, you haven't been covering the Buccaneers as closely, but listen, they're back in first place in the division. They're going cross country to take on the Chargers. If they win this game, what does that say about the Buccaneers, and where do you think are they contenders in the NFC? Like, where do you think they stack up compared to, you know, teams like Detroit and Philadelphia? I don't think they're that high, but are they kind of the top of that second tier possibly?
So here's the thing. I think, what does it say about them if they go out there and win? I think it says that they're underrated, which they always are. I think it says that basically, it's kind of saying it the same way, they're better than most people think. I love the narrative, though, and this has been a narrative for years, and I feel like I have been a broken record on NFL Network saying this over and over again for a long time, that, you know, they'll just sit back, like they feel like they're underappreciated. They got all the attention because of Tom, rightly so. Tom leaves, and sort of the whole like national media bandwagon leaves. We understand why. We know how that works. And so it's just like, well, they're not going to win, and they're not going to continue to win the division. And 2 years ago, Carr goes to the Saints, and it was immediately like, well, the Saints are winning the division, front runners, no question. I mean, the Bucs are just like, get out of here. Like, some people have been like last, right? It's just a slam dunk deal. Carr's there, Saints win the division. Well, that didn't happen. And what happened once again? And then last summer, Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta. Immediately, the Falcons are winning the division, like without a question. It doesn't matter where anybody else is. Like, let's write off the Bucs. Falcons are winning the division. We're done with the Carr thing because like it's just old news, right? Like that's just how that media cycle works. It says like the Falcons might win the Super Bowl. Well, now like look what's happening with the Falcons. That's not playing out the way that everyone else thought it was going to play out. And now we're in December, and look what happens. Like the Bucs are sitting here. I think they probably should have had a couple more wins than they do have. I think there's going to be. It's also never easy with them, right? Like it always comes down to the wire. And despite like Atlanta's collapse, like let's say Atlanta's not having the collapse that they are currently having, that game in Atlanta, they should have never given away, right? Like that, they should have had that game.
Yeah.
Chiefs were in overtime. San Francisco down here. Like there was just so many games, like the Denver game, that was a bad game for them. Like they should have lost that game. I think they knew that. Like, but there was like so many games that really could have gone either way. And I mean, they go up to Detroit, massive win, like out of the gates. And most teams haven't been able to do that, right? So at that point in the year, Jay, honestly, I was like, this team's way better than people think. Like, and I truly thought, this was the beginning of the year when people were healthy. I truly thought that this is a team that's better than last year. And that team was minutes away from like pulling off a crazy upset in Detroit, right? Like it was I forget, it was like a one-score game with under 5 to go or something like that in Detroit. And that was like Baker's first year. And like, there's a lot of firsts happening. And you just thought like, okay, this team could make a run. When they went up there and won again, I'm like, this team is like, they're good. However, I think losing Chris, losing Antoine, you can't take Antoine off the field, right? Like that's a problem. And they have been band-aiding a lot of things, like in terms of that, like the secondary and like having guys have to step up left and right. I think that's really hard to sustain that like deep into the postseason, unless like Todd can get these guys back, but they're not going to get Chris Godwin back, right? That's a huge problem. Like, and every team has injuries, but at some point they start to get to be like, I don't know that you can like carry on. The mark of a good team is people are always going to go down, right? And somebody can like fill in. It feels like this year it's been more than most.
Yeah.
Feels like a lot.
Yeah, it is. It seems like a tall mountain to climb every single week just to come out on top. Forget about making a long postseason run, but just winning a regular season game.
I think they could be there, though. I think they could be there. I mean, I think like if they continue on the trend, this is a hard game, and then the back of their schedule isn't as difficult. I think for them, it stinks if Atlanta like picks it back up and is right back in it, that tiebreaker to the Falcons. because they could have won either of those games and probably should have. But I think they could get in, and like, we say when you get in, it's anybody's guess. Like, I don't know, Baker could go off though. Baker does some crazy stuff with people that like I was flying to Germany to do an NFL game in Germany, the Munich game, when they were in Kansas City. And I went to bed at one point. We're over the Atlantic. We couldn't get it live, but I could like check the internet. And I woke up like late. I don't know where I was at that time, late, and saw that they were in overtime. And I was like, with what receipt? Like they were,
Yeah,
was done. They took them to overtime. So look, like Todd and those guys over there have like been coming up with game plans. And if there's some way you can get those guys back, the guys you really need to get back, and we know Godwin is not going to factor into that. Maybe they can surprise people again, but I think that they could get there. And I think it's just a massive testament to what these guys do every year and get discounted every year. And it's like, here we go, we're December. Who's leading the division again? Which I think is really cool. And I think that people in Tampa have actually gotten spoiled the last couple of years with that.
You got that right. Real quick before I let you go, I got to ask you some footy questions, of course. Women, U.S. women, Coach Emma, unbelievable to win the gold there. I just such a great story.
Yeah.
Then they go across the pond, they come away with the draw there, but it's just, what do you expect from them going forward as we get closer and closer to, them reaching, big time goals in the big time competitions? Again, it seems like they're headed on the right path. And what do you make on the men's side of Pochettino through his first couple of games with the men's national team? I thought it was so cool to watch Weston McKennie score for Juventus against Man City the other day from Timmy Weah. I'm like, wow, look at that. The Americans helping, because where my allegiance is. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, the men's and women's, what do you think?
So I think the women are back where they typically belong, which is on top. They had a really rough stretch there for a while, and it's so two totally different expectations, really, because for the longest time the women are the front runners, right? And I work alongside Julie Foudy, who's like one of the premier people that started that back with Mia Hamm and Christine, that whole 99ers group, and like that's how they've lived basically. And this entire operation of this program is that they're the number one team in the world. And what happened is the women's game caught up, which is also good for the game. And we saw parity, which we've not seen like in those earlier years. So there are a lot of good teams. Like, and Emma says this, which Emma, by the way, we're obsessed with her. We love her. She's so great. She's awesome. So great to deal with. She's so fun, and she wins. She had 4 games with the team before she went to the Olympics, goes and wins the gold medal. And this is a team that had been reeling, like made their earliest exit in a World Cup ever for them the summer before. They said that like hung over, like that feeling had like hung over, and they like felt like a lot of weight on their shoulders about it. And she just comes in, turns it around. I don't think we'll ever see them like breeze through things the way that they used to, right? Like they're the best team in the world. But I think it's not going to be they're just beating people for nothing. Like that time doesn't exist anymore. And I think they're happy too, because it just means that like the game has elevated and there's so many opportunities for people all over the world to be playing and being paid for playing. And then on the men's side, like Pochettino, that's hard in the sense of we haven't had him there that long. I believe September was when he showed up, but I know he came with a lot of hype. He's been great. We just did a women's friendly game in Wembley in London 2 weeks ago, maybe. And 80,000 people there at a women's friendly game, which was awesome at Wembley Stadium. But Pochettino was there. Like I think he's really bought into, I kind of thought like maybe he'd be this like Premier League coach and he's like standoffish and he's like, this is how he is. He's been like very welcoming and warm and like embraces, like, I think he really wants this country to like rally behind these guys. And obviously the World Cup is here in 2 years. So his whole job is like building them up to that and putting on a really good product when it gets here. So I think on both sides, the women are obviously there. They're on top. Their challenge is different. It's how to stay there, how to not let anyone knock you off that perch. And the men's challenge is completely different in terms of trying to get to where the best teams in the world are. And I think he's been great so far. The sample size has been so small. So it's like hard to be like, well, he's done this and it's different. Like, I mean, I think he's really, he might have had 2 camps, if I'm remembering right. It's kind of like getting to know who he has. And he's going to be based over in Europe a lot, because that's where, as you mentioned, like Weston, Christian, like all these guys are. So I think it's a super exciting time. I mean, the World Cup's going to go crazy here in the United States. And I feel like we as a country will embrace anything. And then I think what they want in terms of they want a lasting impact, right, where that matters. And it's not just like, look, we got this awesome party for a couple weeks with these awesome games, and it's going to be incredible. But they want it to be sustaining and long lasting. And to do that, they know that they have to put on a good showing. But I think they have the right guy to do it. And we've enjoyed like the limited time we've had with him. He's been great too.
Yeah, and you look at some of the success. I mean, Christian Pulisic looks fantastic with AC Milan. I love watching Anthony Robinson playing left back at Fulham. I mean, he's a guy that it's
Really
surprising to me that he's not, getting picked up by a Liverpool or Man U, people that need left backs or left wing back. I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen. Those two guys are American. It's good. And I just mentioned guys like Timmy Weah and Yunus Musa and Weston McKinnon. So it's very exciting to see that much talent that are Americans playing in Europe. The one and only Sara Walsh. Sara, you are the greatest. NFL Network, TNT Sports. She is all over. Thank you. Thoughts and prayers again to you guys as you're still, recuperating for the storm. I always appreciate your time and your friendship, and give my love to the fam. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a great holidays.
Thanks, Jay. Sorry, I'm a hot mess.
You're good. Bye. The one and only Sara Walsh. She's the best. She really is. And so proud that she's from our area. She is so inspiring to me. And at the very least, everybody in my household, we all love her, but I know a lot of people love her here in the Tampa Bay area. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. A big thank you to everybody that joined me on the program today. What an incredible show. The cavalcade of stars that we had on the program today. A big thank you to Xavier Scruggs, to Gabby Shirley, to Bailey Adams, to Paul Russo, to Sara Walsh, and to you. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere, and please like and subscribe here on YouTube. I'll be back in action on Monday. We have a couple of big guests. I'm pretty sure I'm going to check it right here with you guys here. Hold on. Guest number 1 on Monday will be Braden Coburn, former member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He will join me on the program, as well as Michael Kelly, USF Vice President of Athletics. That's a big show already. Ian Beckles is going to join us as well. So Monday, we got Beckles. We have Braden Coburn. We've got Michael Kelly. This is how it's going to be on the J Recher podcast. When I go 5 days a week in 2025, it does not stop. We are bringing the heat every single day right here on the J Recher podcast. Everybody have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next time right here. I'm gone. Peace out. Deuces.